Hello, everyone. Welcome to Developing Palates. I'm Aaron Loomis coming to you from the Drew Estate Studio. And with me today is John McTavish from the Bastania Studio. How you doing, John?
Good man. Goodbye to 2025. Hello to 2026, and we're off to the races.
That's right. And today's a little different show than our normal kind of video recaps that we're doing. So today we're doing our annual cigar media recap, where we're joined by some other media legends and can share their thoughts on what's going on in the past year and maybe a bit of a look forward to 2026. So without further ado, let's introduce our guests tonight. First guest I'll introduce is Matt Masters from Cigar Hound Dog. Matt, how you doing tonight?
Uh, let me just confirm. Coop is a media legend. I'm not as such. But
Okay,
yes,
let's go with legend in the making. Can we go that route?
dumbass. You can call me dumbass. There you go. But yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It's a total honor to be here. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And William Cooper from Cigar Coop. Will, how you doing?
How you doing, Matt? Mad respect for you. So thanks for being on tonight. Really
Thank
good
you,
to have
sir.
you. Yep, yeah.
Yeah. So, are you guys smoking it all tonight?
hmm
All right.
Yes,
So let's go around and talk about what you guys are smoking. What do you got going on tonight, Matt?
I have the HVC La Rosa 520 10 year
Okay.
There you
and
go.
Originalis. This is a really good cigar. I like it.
Nice. Very good. And Coop, what are you smoking tonight?
Number three cigar of the year on Cigar Coop, the Aladino Cameron Reserva.
Yeah, I
Yes.
knew you'd
Very
Very
like
nice.
good
that.
Yeah.
cigar.
I knew you'd like that.
All right, John, what are you smoking?
I went with something kind of older-ish, older compared to everything else we've been smoking. So this is the Warhead 10.
Okay.
I've been smoking just an absolute pile of these, and I was like, you know what? I need something a little bit longer tonight, a little bit beefier because it's going to get spicy at times. So this is kind of the perfect cigar.
Nice. All right. So this is our annual kind of recap show. So what I like to do is we'd like to talk about various things around cigars in 2025. And we usually like to start out with the positive because sometimes it can go down a dark road. So what we'll start out with today is surprises for cigars that you smoked in 2025. And this is not necessarily like the best cigars that you smoked in 2025. This is maybe cigars that maybe weren't on your radar coming into the year that you tried and kind of really surprised you, or maybe a cigar that you didn't have uh, high expectations for, but maybe kind of jumped out at you. So um, I'll open up to anybody if they want to jump in to start with, or I can go first and kind of get it going.
How about the Chai Molly Pioneer Extra? That kind of came out of nowhere.
Yes,
Yep.
I guess for some of us that wasn't a brand that was really kind of in the forefront for us.
Yeah, totally new. Totally
Yeah,
new company.
yeah. So it was definitely interesting. I think it was probably one of the more at the trade show, at least one of the brands that had the most buzz to it kind of going on.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Especially especially for a smaller brand. So definitely
Small booth
interesting.
in the back too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
You know the
you had to go looking for them.
yeah, the rest of the coalition team was very high on that brand. I was probably the least high on it.
Yeah,
Um, the one cigar I did like from them wasn't a 2025 release. It was the
yeah,
2024 release. It was the Pangu.
yeah,
Right.
Yeah. So, but I will tell you, the Coop team was very, very high on that tamale.
yeah.
I
All right,
mean,
cool. Oh, go
you know,
ahead.
I think I was just gonna say, I mean, part of the fun for us going to the show, I mean, it's great to see everybody, but it's nice to find brands that we've never heard of before, never seen before. It's better when they live up to expectations, which it did in this case, but it's kind of nice to see in 2025/2026 people sort of try to make a go of it in the cigar industry because this isn't 2010 anymore. It's not 2015. It's a difficult landscape to navigate, and so good for the. I mean, there's other brands that I'm sure other people bring up, but that was the kind of one that was in the forefront of my mind.
And they're so young too. Like
Mhm.
I think like maybe like mid-20s, Mike and Sean of
Yeah.
Jamali. They're, for especially a cigar industry, like that's a more like middle-aged, like older kind of you expect when somebody gets into it.
Yep.
Unless you're born into it. But yeah, it's such young guys. It's very impressive.
Yep. All right, Coop, you have a cigar that was a bit of a surprise for you this year?
Yeah, I think it had to be the Viva La Vida Connecticut,
Oh, there you go.
which I didn't expect that one. I was lukewarm on the original Viva La Vida line. A little higher on the El Popo, but the Connecticut just came out and like it wowed us at the show and it wowed us after the show, especially me. So I didn't. That was one I did not see coming this year.
So I also had that on my list, Coop, and pretty much checked all the boxes you mentioned. Like, and I'm not a hater, but I haven't been so like hugely, I think, high scoring on some of the other releases. And I don't remember if it was day one or day two. I think it was day one, and it was the first cigar of the morning. That it might have been the first cigar of the show, right? Was that right, Aaron?
Yeah.
Was it the
We
yeah
we
first,
were we went there day one as well, but I think you guys were already there before us.
Yeah, so it was I mean, listen, I know there's something to be said about a fresh palate, but it's the first cigar of the show of the morning, and both Aaron and I and June were like, this is pretty fucking good. Like this is a great way to start the show. It was impressive, and obviously, you come home from the show and you're like, well, I really hope that the release candidate or lives up to what the actual store bought version was, and I think it did. I think it was
Yeah, it did. It did.
yeah, I think it walked that fine line between having a little bit more body to make it more interesting and still kind of being in that Connecticut ish lane.
Uh,
You like that a lot, right?
Yeah, I was a big fan of it. I'm not usually a big fan of the stuff that comes out of AJ's factories, but it was definitely a kind of a departure from the core blends that usually come out of there. So yeah, I did enjoy quite a bit.
They stole the keys and got in there while IJ was away or something.
Exactly. They like to give him all the credit, so but they
Yeah,
maybe they just have to ask for forgiveness after the fact. But
Yeah.
that's right.
uh,
Aaron, I had another surprise.
okay.
And it didn't make the Coop list because it wasn't reviewed in time. But I've been talking about this cigar for about the last 4 or 5 months. It's the CLE Maduro.
Hmm.
Mm.
I didn't expect that to come out of something like that to come out of CLE. It really just kind of came out of nowhere, and very good cigar line.
Yeah, I've struggled trying to find a place to be able to pick that up from. I don't think it's out there as wide of distribution as a lot of their other stuff.
It is, and I did find it. I can let you know
Okay.
if you want to buy from them or not. It's the question. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, I mean that's going to be the challenge, and I suppose we'll talk about it later on. But that's going to be the challenge, I think, for us in Q1 is getting enough sort of new cigars to get in the hop for review. Because with the show moving up, we're facing kind of the same challenge we do normally later in the year when the show is in July and August. It's just now it's front loaded in the year, so
yeah.
um, I think it's that impetus of a lot of cigar brands wanting to hold their stuff back to exhibit at the show, and so you hope enough people are releasing stuff in January and February to make it keep the lights on.
Yeah. How about you, Matt? Any surprises for you in 2025?
I've had a number of surprises. For one, this HVC.
Hmm.
I've never been that big on HVC stuff.
Right.
I think across the board here, it's safe to agree that since moving away from Aganorsa, since starting their own factory, like they just been killing it.
Yeah. Agree.
Yep,
Totally agree. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And just
So-
this La Rosa 520 year, like I once again, I didn't smoke HVC a lot, but like I've had this cigar probably the most out of any cigar for the past 3 months. It's just, it's affordable, it's really freaking good, consistent. That was a surprise. Another one that comes to mind is the CAO Stoke, the Arcana Stoke.
Oh, really?
Because
Wow.
I have not had good luck with any of the Arcanas.
Yeah.
But that Stoke, I was going into it with the most like, oh my god, here we go again, gigantic band. It has freaking pipe tobacco in it. It's gonna be like it's gonna be a knockoff Stillwell. I really liked it. I was so surprised with how much I enjoyed that cigar. So, that one and the TAA San Andres, Flor de las Antillas. That
Hmm.
cigar
Mm.
surprised the crap out of me too.
Oh
That
yeah.
was a really good cigar. Yeah, those are a couple.
Nice. Yeah, for me, a cigar that jumped out at me this year was the Gallows Peace Unique.
Mm.
Um, and that's not a cigar I think I would have come across this that I would have smoked this year, just because I haven't had a good track record with Warped over the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Um, but Peter from the Cigar Collective sent some out to us, and I was a little leery of it because
40
one,
bucks.
one, it's $40. So,
Not a cheap
well,
date.
there's a
Yeah.
bunch of things. It's because it's Warped and I haven't had a good track record with them in the last few years. It's a $40 cigar coming out of La Isla, which had at that point hadn't really played in that range, right? So they've
Yeah.
been much more in the more affordable, I'd say probably $15 and under, or right around that $17 and under kind of a range. So I was wondering, would they be able to produce something at a high level at a high price point? And that cigar delivered. So I just wasn't. There was just a lot of factors I think that were kind of playing against it in my head. But
Yeah.
it was a nice surprise kind of on all fronts. So um, um, there's still a little bit of magic left with Kyle. So we'll see
That
if he
that's a
can.
that's a cigar it's weird because it's a more mild bodied cigar. And
Yeah.
when it released, because I bought a 5 pack or 4 pack, whatever. When it released, I smoked it and it was very blasé, very
Mhm.
whatever. But when I had it 6 months later, it
Yeah.
blossomed into a beautiful experience.
Right.
So it's a mild cigar that aged better, like
Yeah.
with a few months on it.
Yep. And I have a feeling that's like a bit of a trend with cigars the last couple of years is that they need a bit of time, I think, to really come into their own. I
Yeah.
know that for that's typically been the thing for Cubans, but that you needed to like give them a lot of time to acclimate. But I think
Mhm.
and that non-Cubans were supposed to be like ready to go as soon as they were hitting the shops. But I think that there's a bit of a shift going on with that, and I don't
Rush, a little bit of a
a
rush.
little bit of a rush, yeah. So, and yeah, it's either that it's a rush or um, just the tobacco isn't as good of a quality, but it does help with, a little bit more time kind of rest. So I don't know, maybe just an anecdotal thing from my end, but we'll see how it goes coming up this year. Any other scars you guys wanted to talk about, or you want to go to the other side of things here? All
The
right, let's
Well,
darks.
get
for brands, the other
yeah.
brand I want to mention, yeah,
Go ahead.
Stoic for sure. For a couple of different reasons. So first of all, again, I think there's always new brands at the show. We're always seeking out new brands, and I think this is probably consistently the first time in as long as I can remember where we had a number of new brands, and I thought they consistently did well. That is, they
Hmm.
they seemed prepared. They had product that was good. They seemed to have a sense of what they were doing. And obviously with Stoic, and I'm sure someone else is going to mention the other brand, but we've been waiting for Class to hit the market with his new factory. And so there's kind of a underlying story of, Class's factory has sort of hit the market in 2025 with a huge splash. And, obviously, yes, there's the brand, but I don't think you can downplay the effect and sort of the interplay of tobacco and the factory that's supporting that. So that was kind of my cool story of 2025 is finding new brand, seeing what Class is doing, really, being stoked about that. And I would say I can safely call myself the resident Dominican hater in terms of like how Dominican cigars in general get scored. So I feel like, for me to be impressed not only by Stoic but other brands that are coming out of his factory, that's pretty impressive. Like that's a hell of a launch. I think.
Yeah, I think if you're talking about Stoic, then the other brand is Avowed, just to be able to play within that same kind of factory and wheelhouse type of stuff. So, um, two brands that are like, I would say, polar opposites on the price spectrum, um, but working out of the same factory. So, two different strategies, um, but both, producing good cigars kind of in the path that they're going.
Yep.
Well, like I was thinking about that question because I was like factors that surprised me this year. It's like it's not for me. That's not a surprise that somebody with the Kellner name
Yeah.
would come out with good cigars. Like affordable cigars, that's one thing, but good cigars,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
another story. So I mean, obviously, I have a lot of uh, adoration for Avowed. But yeah, it's for me, it's not a surprise. They're doing what I think they were going to be doing. You know,
Yeah.
It was interesting. We were talking about this today in a group chat, and I think the factory had an incredible year. Definitely they were our factory of the year on Coop. Um, Avowed, the cigars are great. I just didn't see enough of them in the stores to say
Right.
they would accompany of the year just yet. Now they could get there certainly,
Right.
but it's still kind of. I thought it was just still a little limited. But you can't argue. I smoked that Awakening, that $30 Awakening, and honestly, I'd pay $30 for that cigar. That's how good it was. It was fantastic. And I recently smoked Klaus's father's the
Oh,
LE80.
the
the
80th.
80th.
Yeah, and I was impressed with
Woo!
that as well. So yeah, he's
I've
doing some
I've heard
incredible.
good things.
Yeah,
I've heard good things.
yeah, it's a good
Damn good.
cigar. It's a really good cigar he did. Um,
Nice.
yeah. As far as I had Artisano also as the surprise brand of the year, where that one
Mm,
kind of surprised me. But the other company that surprised me, and they really are not, they've kind of been in a little bit of a stagnant pattern for the past few years in terms of getting releases out, keeping up with demand. But they got some stuff out in the second half last year that was very good. La Flor Dominicana. I thought the Suaves were excellent. I liked everything they did about those reblends. They got the new sizes of the Oro out. I like that they put these in the 20 count boxes as well. So I think they had some good releases that kind of flew under the radar in like really fourth quarter this year. Not even the second, more the fourth quarter. I think they came on strong, and
Yeah.
I didn't expect that because, like I said, LaFleur's kind of been in this pattern. Yeah, hopefully it will come out. Whatever they have at the show, blah blah blah.
Right.
But now we saw it, and what they delivered was very good.
Nice. Any other cigars, brands, factories that were surprises for you guys in 2025?
I'd say out of the blue, it was probably Chamali, like just from
Mm.
from nothing to like just
Yeah.
being on the radar. That's
Yep.
probably my number one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't I think it's been a long time at the trade show where there was like a new brand that there was buzz about.
yep.
I don't
Yeah.
It's just been like it just hasn't really occurred. The last I may be missing some, so forgive me if I do, but I want to say the last one that I remember that was like that was Cavalier when they were
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
kind of
Yep.
popping up. And I mean like the first year that they were there, it was kind of there was a bit of a buzz going on
Yeah.
for them, and that you could see where that's kind of turned out to here. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
been a long kind of dry run of like there's been a tons of small brands, um, but nothing that some have made big
Yeah.
splashes, but they never like did
Uh,
anything with it.
on the
Yeah.
booth recaps we write up, they were top 10 in traffic, Chamali.
Hmm.
I mean, they were beating out some companies. Yeah. So people were definitely it was on people's radar when they were looking for trade show coverage, for sure.
Yeah.
There's no question. And like the only other one I could think of, Aaron, was El Mago, but they didn't get the traffic that Chamali got. So
Right.
Yeah.
that's why I wouldn't necessarily. I remember Cavalier broke. That was a big one, but El Mago certainly had traffic. Not traffic. They had a lot of activity at their booth, but I didn't see the buzz like I did with Chamali this year.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. Let's flip sides and talk about some disappointments from 2025. And this can also be cigars, brands, factories, whatnot. And I'll start this off just because I don't want to make the guests start out by talking bad about people. And I'm going to go back to the same factory that I said was a surprise, and that's La Isla, because
Yep.
the Dapper 10th anniversary, I just didn't understand it at all.
Which is a brand we love.
I love Dapper.
And we've
I
been very
absolutely
high
love
on Dapper for a decade
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
8 years. Yeah.
But
Yeah, I just don't understand going to a new factory for your 10-year anniversary. I don't know if something happened with Noxa or whatever that's going on. I'm okay. That's just one thing you see it and you're like, okay, that's kind of weird, but let's see how it goes. Ian's put out a bunch of good cigars, so let's see what we could do in another country at a different factory. But it just did not work for me at all. Obviously, I love the Piece Unique that came out of La Isla. I've liked a lot of other cigars that came out of La Isla, but this one just didn't do it for me. And I think that failed on multiple levels. So you have a 10th anniversary cigar, supposed to have high expectations already, and then you go into another factory, your first cigar out of that factory, out of a different country, and it's like you're shifting a bit of a shift for the company. I think it just failed kind of all around in regards to that. So that was a bit of a disappointment for me last year.
Did you guys have the same experience where because Ian sent out the short Robusto pre-release samples of the 10th?
Right.
I
Yes.
have those, but I never smoked one, so I
Right.
can't
So
compare.
I smoked
Those
I
are
smoked the
great.
short Robusto. The short Robusto is great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Those are phenomenal.
he said there was a mistake, but I didn't review it because it wasn't released.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which
it wasn't
makes sense.
released.
Yeah.
I brought him
Yeah,
to the
I-
compound. I had him at the compound.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same,
Yeah, I smoked
same
one.
thing.
And they
a few
went.
months
Everyone
ago.
grabbed them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I had the Toro. I think it was like a 6x54 Toro, like whatever the full release size was.
Right.
Afterwards, I'm like, this isn't the same cigar.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
agree. I agree
Yeah.
with you guys on that.
All right. So now I gotta go track mine down. I'll find them. I'll have to smoke
Yeah,
it
you
and
gotta
see
smoke
what
it.
it's
I
like.
gotta-
Yeah.
But I
Interested
couldn't.
to
I
know.
couldn't put the short robusto as a review, and
Yeah.
and then I didn't buy another Toro.
If it's not bought.
Yeah.
I'm gonna instead of specifically a cigar brand, I'm gonna throw a whole country under the bus.
Okay.
Because that's how I
Uh-oh.
roll. So on and I'll preface it by saying there's some Honduran companies that did very well in 2025. Aladino was hitting on every single mark all year long, as they typically do, even with the anniversary release. Bond Roberts had a couple of releases out of Honduras, which I thought were very good. But there was a lot of other factories and a lot of other companies that had shifted manufacturing to Honduras. And I was like, I don't know if I'm just have become an old curmudgeon hater, but I just was not impressed at all with any of the releases that were coming out of Honduras that typically come out of Nicaragua. Like, to me, they're all a step down. I just, I know a lot of people were very high on some of the stuff. For me, not
Blue?
so much. The blue, yeah, the My Father Blue is a great example from a factory that, like, I've been smoking My Father for like a decade and a half, 2 decades, and I was super pumped for it, and I was just like, oh, this is not what this it just doesn't taste like My Father to me.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't. And I didn't not like it. I just didn't think it was anything special. It was just a cigar. Just
Yeah, okay.
But there's lots of. I just want to counter that by saying, the number of people that are like, "Did you have that cigar? It's so good," and I'm like, "Really? Okay."
I know we're going to get to consensus later on, but one of the three things I had on my list was My Father Blue for a disappointment. I did not get it. Now, I don't think it was a bad quality cigar. I don't think it was bad tobaccos or anything like that. I just didn't like it. To me, it was very mediocre, and I know people were raving about that cigar.
I literally had people messaging me after the show. They're like, "Did you try the My Father Blue? When are you reviewing the My Father Blue? I really like it."
Same here. Same here.
Okay.
Now it's selling at my local shop. Like, it started slow, but the sales have really kicked in. So people are going back to that cigar. So maybe it's me, but I just didn't get that cigar at all. I thought, compared to what my father's been doing the last few years, I'm like, this ain't it,
Yeah,
Let
I'll
me
be curious
guess,
to see.
Aaron,
Was it?
you loved it.
No, I didn't.
No.
I was not a fan.
Oh, shit.
No,
Who'd
no.
have thought?
Yeah. So I'll be curious to see some other releases, that come out of that factory to see kind of where things are at.
Mhm.
Heat's release was better, I thought. The P I thought was better than My Father Blue.
We didn't
Yeah,
smoke it.
I haven't smoked it yet, so
Yeah,
I
I
don't
thought it
really
was
know.
better. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's first release out of a factory in a new country. Like I said, sometimes it could be a toss up, but um, you have to see what future iterations are that come out of there. Um,
It's just bizarre that it's like other people are smoking something completely different. And
yes,
I
but
just you're
Well,
trying to
that never
understand.
ceases to surprise me, honestly.
here's
So
here's what I'm curious. Like this it would take way too much work, and it's not worth it at all, only to satisfy someone's own curiosity. But all the people that rank that really high, I would be very curious to see, like, go back through their previous reviews to get a sense of how much Honduran blends they
Yeah.
smoke.
mm,
Just because I'm curious if they're just not, that's just
Smoke.
not kind of their thing, or they just are more Nicaraguan focused. And maybe as a intro to Honduran cigars, that's a good entry point. I don't know. But like John was mentioning, like if you smoked a lot of JRE stuff or you smoke some Oscar stuff, that's really good. And you've kind of, because you could, I think it's really easy to put together a bad Honduran blend.
Yeah.
yeah, it
Um,
just
so
tastes like
like
dirty
you have to,
sock.
Easier for sure.
once you get some more refined stuff, it's hard to like kind of go back to something that's not already kind of top notch. So I'm not going to go do it because I might do it just to
Well,
scratch that itch I have. But it's
Seth really liked the cigar, right?
Seth did like it. Yeah,
Yeah, he did like it. Yeah, and
yeah.
that surprised me. I gotta admit that. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
So
a wild card, though.
yeah, he's a
He's
wild
hard.
I,
To,
card.
he's
I
hard
didn't
to pin
expect that.
down.
Yeah, I didn't expect that just based on what I know about him. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll have to see what future blends hold for them. All right, more disappointments.
La Aurora Family Creed.
Mm.
Okay.
So listen, when it comes to La Aurora, I think Manuel Manoa is a Mount Rushmore blender, in my opinion.
Right.
He is as good as he's made some of my favorite cigars of all time. I understand what they were trying to do with this Family Creed, but this was like more of a crowdsourced effort with a Mexican San Andreas wrapper that was just mediocre in my book. Typically that's what you see with these crowdsourced cigars that happen. And yes, it's very different than what La Aurora is, but it's not very different in terms of competitive cigars on the market with San Andreas here. It was very,
Yeah.
but it was ranked high. A lot of people had that one ranked high, which I
Yeah.
didn't understand it.
Well, that's. I think the problem for me is that that's another example of when you move out of kind of what the wheelhouse of your blend style is. Sometimes that's fun, and sometimes that can be good. But I like La Aurora's blend style. Like I
I do
like,
too. I do
you
too.
know.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, how did I put it, Aaron? I think I said this is like someone at Honduras is trying to blend something that tastes like it's out of Nicaragua and it fails on both accounts or something
Yep.
like that. It was just, I was like, this doesn't taste like the La Aurora that I'm used to. And I don't know if it's just because I was expecting La Aurora and it didn't taste anything like that, or again, with the Mexican San Andre, which we'll get to, I'm sure, in our talking points. But um, yeah, it didn't blow my skirt up.
No. Um, Again, I know what they were trying to do with this, right? And they were trying for
Mm.
something very different, right?
No.
The question
Well,
is,
what's different?
I'd love to know how well that cigar is selling, first of all. And hopefully it's selling good for them. I don't want it to sell bad. And how many people are going back to that cigar in a quote unquote rotation. So I know I know it got some critical. I was surprised how much critical acclaim it's gotten in the last
Mhm.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have one brand which I'm willing to mention, but I may
Go
get
for
in a
it.
lot of trouble. Also, hopefully I'll be allowed in their factory again after I'm gonna say this. Casa Carrillo had a disastrous year this year. And I love Casa Carrillo, I've gone to
Yep.
the factory. I love Ernesto, but they missed on so many marks this year. I don't think Endura did for them what they wanted it to do. I think a lot of their those core lines with the essence, I don't think have really again accomplished what they needed, which was that $10 price point cigar. I don't think it kind of hooked on. They did a lot of higher price limited editions that missed. And I think as a company, they rolled the dice with CA so much, and they got completely shut out of CA this year. And I think you have to look at a strategy like that and say, is that our best strategy? If we're going to put all the eggs in one basket with CA like they did all year, and you come out with
And
a goose egg. I mean,
and I know we're not talking about CA, but talking about the CA list, that was actually one of the big shockers. Was I think almost all of us had Ernie as a stone cold lock because
yeah, we all
he's
did.
always on the list,
Always on the
and
list.
so yeah, to see him shut out of the list was very surprising.
But I thought it was a weak. I thought it was a weaker year overall for them. I thought the Pledge of Allegiance
Mm.
wasn't as strong this year as they had. I didn't think the Silk hit the mark that they came out with. There was a lot. The Battleborn, the jury's still out with me with that one. But those were a lot of higher priced cigars, and I don't know if they've connected with the audience with those cigars either. I think they have some. I think they have to. They're capable of making great cigars. I think they have to go back to the drawing board with their approach right now into 2026. I think they're capable of bouncing back, but this wasn't a good year for them, in my opinion.
Yeah. That Endure was rough.
Yeah.
For me, that was a rough cigar. I mean, Mirafell Cameroon, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's Matt, 100% right. You hit it on the head.
Yeah.
And they banked a lot on that cigar this year. That was their big release that they were rolling with for the whole year.
Yeah.
Hoping it was going to do what Pledge did and what Encore did. I don't think it did. Even Allegiance, I think, hit the mark a little more than that one.
And it's like a $20 cigar. It's like it's not cheap.
Yeah, it's not a cheap date.
Right.
But I mean, that's unfortunately, when you get Mirafell Cameroon, it's also not cheap. So, we'll get to that later as a talking point, but I have a lot more respect for if you're charging $20 and I can point to the tobacco and go, okay, well, that makes sense. But if you're going $20 and it's Mexican San Andre over Ecuadorian Habano binder with Nicaraguan filler, I'm like, okay, what are we talking about here?
Yeah. Now I will say this: the packaging game has really stepped up for that company, which was a company not known for packaging. They're doing some great packaging. If you look at that Battleborn packaging, it's beautiful. Mm-hmm. Now you just got to get me the cigars that are in these things, in my opinion, to kind of live up to some of the packaging. But they've stepped up their game in packaging the last few years.
Yeah, that box is beautiful.
It is with the dog tag in it and everything. Yeah, it's really sharp presentation.
Yeah, I did like the silk though. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed the silk.
I got to give it another shot then. I haven't put it to a review yet, but my initial experience wasn't positive, but I'll give it another shot.
Yeah. As far as disappointments, I would say that Davidoff, Winston Churchill 25.
Oh, I agree. Totally agree with you on that one.
That was a rough cigar. $50, $49.50.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yes, one of the biggest disappointments of the year from Davidoff it was, if not the biggest one I had.
Yeah. What other disappointments were there? Let me look at my little cheat sheet.
Well, I can fill. It was one of Aaron's favorite cigars, and it was one of my least favorite cigars, and that was the Davidoff Chef's Edition. I did not wrap my head around that at all. Yeah, not sure what happened there.
My mind blew up because I was like, Aaron's the only one that likes this cigar.
Yeah.
Like,
loved it. Loved it.
Yeah, he loved it. It was my favorite Davidoff of the year too, the Chef's Edition. I loved that cigar.
Yeah.
Once again, really expensive, but as far as like what was released from Davidoff this year, that was the Escurio 10th was damn good too, which is surprising because I don't like the original Escurio.
Well, I'm kind of jumping. I'm jumping over the Escurio because I'm just looking forward to the obvious Yamasa 10th anniversary is what I'm looking forward to because that was such a huge release in the industry. So I'm anticipating that this year, and I think if it doesn't release, I'll be very disappointed.
Yeah. Another big disappointment. It wasn't released last year, but a cigar that I had was the Legends Fuente 4 Padron. $150, $175 cigar. It was so whatever. Like, give me a Don Carlos.
Yeah. I liked it a lot, but I liked the Padron for Fuente better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still need to try that one. But for such an expensive ass cigar, I was just like, what is this?
I mean, that's going to be so hard to live up to a price. Well, it's I always liken it to whiskey, right? Like there's a price point where you get to where the expectation becomes so high that it almost becomes impossible to deliver on that. You know what I mean? Like even if it was still very good, you're like, okay, well, how many other Don Carlos, like what is this, two Don Carloses for one Legends, right? Like you go, okay, the math says I could get 150% enjoyment for the same money. I don't know, and for me that always becomes an economics issue.
Well, and it's like with whiskey, you can be sure that like if you have one, glass from a batch, it's all going to taste the same. With
Right.
cigars,
True. Yeah.
just the composition, you can't equate that it's all going to be the same. There's
Yeah.
going to be variances from one to the other. I bet you if I had the one that Coop had and vice versa, we would maybe agree on like,
Yeah.
that there can be some inconsistencies. But it's just the nature of the beast with cigars. And when you price something that high, when the makeup of like the physical components are just this way with this product with cigars, it's a dicey proposition because you putting that much money, like anything over $30 for me is
Yeah.
like you better fucking deliver. And
Yeah.
it's just a hard thing with cigars just because the physical makeup of it.
Yeah.
See, I only smoked it once, right? And that's a fair statement. And that's why it wasn't on my list. It was very good, but I can't put something on my list based on one smoke.
Yeah.
So it wasn't. And I couldn't source it again.
Mhm.
And then it was expensive to source it, but I couldn't even get it again. I got what I got, and that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Any other disappointments from you guys?
So is that all the shit talking we have? Is that it?
There's more.
There'll be a lot
There's
more as
more.
the
It's
show
just
goes
different.
along.
It's industry
Yeah.
shit talking, not specific brands. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, other brands will come up, I'm sure, as we get going through some of this stuff. But yeah.
As far as like disappointing companies, I would say Crown Heads. Just I know they're doing the rebranding. I don't like it.
I agree. They
I'm
ruined Mildias.
yeah,
I
that's
liked
such
it.
a
I liked
such a
it.
beautiful
I like it.
band.
Yeah, I like it. Except,
I,
except, except for the Mil Diaz. That's the one that's I agree there. And I don't like the branding of the Mil Diaz, but I like the branding for everything else.
yeah, and I once again Drew Estate. Because I know Charlie mentioned that on the consensus, like it's just they're nowhere to be found again, and like they haven't really like the release here wasn't there like their freestyle like a flavored cigar
It
at the
was, yeah. They had one as the Dominicana, and the other one was the Nika Rucas Nika Shade,
Yeah.
oh the
which I
shade
do
yeah
think I haven't reviewed it yet, but I do think it was kind of a miss for them.
right
So yeah, it just wasn't a strong enough. I don't know how many lists it ended up. I think I saw it on one list,
okay
and the guy who
yeah
reviewed it tends to review a lot of Drew Estate anyway.
yeah as far as like companies that come to mind those would be the top two Brown Heads and Drew Estate as far
Yeah,
as
I would say Drew
disappointments.
Estate's they're definitely missing a big launch. I think that they haven't had one of those in a few years. So
Yeah.
But I thought Davidoff missed coming back to the trade show this year. Like it was a big comeback for the trade show. They just did three LEs, pretty much, and that was it. And I thought the Avo one, was kind of I know this is gonna be a big year for Davidoff because Avo's 100. So
mm,
I think this has got Davidoff's got to get it right with this Avo 100 this year. They can't miss. They can't miss with it.
yeah.
So hopefully they're getting ready for that. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Getting,
the
go
Synchro
ahead.
10 was okay. Sorry, just wanted to throw that
Yeah, yeah.
It was okay, but it wasn't like it wasn't great.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into some trends then from last year. And I think I had this one on the list last year, and that was Mexican San Andreas wrappers. So
Oh my God.
we saw a big jump up in the number of cigars that were using that wrapper last year, or in 2024. But I think that trend has continued as the kind of the Maduro of choice because the Connecticut broadleaf supply has been so limited. So,
Yep.
you guys' thoughts on a ton of Mexican wrapped cigars? And I'm gonna even say the number of cigar releases at the end of 2025 and the beginning of this year have been fairly San Andres heavy. So, what are you guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I'll hop on that because I started the Mexican San Andre watch prior to the show because I kept seeing these releases and I was like, good lord, how many Mexican San Andre pre-release announcements are we going to get? And I think we got up to I think we were still getting them rolling into the show, and I think we hit 42 or something like that before the show even hit. And out of the show, I think we were north of 50. And I will counter that by saying, there were some what I thought to be very good Mexican San Andre releases, like Pastania had a very, very good Mexican San Andre. So it gave me a little bit of hope navigating the San Andre waters. But boy, oh boy, it just seemed like a scattershot of everything was Mexican. Like every other cigar seemed like it was a Mexican San Andre release.
Y- Yeah, most of the Mexican San Andreas releases missed for me this year. It just wasn't a great year for Mexican San Andreas. I don't get I mean I don't get excited about it anymore. Um, like I said, I go back to that La Aurora. I just thought it was a mediocre cigar. It wasn't a great cigar in my opinion. So I don't think I had any Mexican San Andreas on my top 10 this
Mhm.
year.
I'll go one further, Coop. I
Yeah.
think I'm glad we're going blind for reviews because now I don't have to look and see it's a Mexican San Andre going into the review. Because honestly, I'm not looking forward to a review now if I know the rapper's Mexican San Andre because I feel like there's a better than 50-50 chance that I'm probably not going to enjoy it. That's how
Yeah.
widespread it is.
Two
Yeah.
Mexican San Andreas that made my like three made my list I could think of, but they were all 24 releases. The Bella Ancre Tuxla and the La Riqueza Tuxla, which I thought Pete's two best Tuxlas, but they were late 2024 releases for the most part. And
Pete doesn't count. Pete
yeah,
doesn't count.
and then I then I go back. Artesanal del Tobacco did that Calabra, but that was 2024 as well, and I thought that was one of
Mm,
the best Calabras I've had.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
but
right.
otherwise, it was really like nothing was hitting my list with San Andreas this year.
Yeah, I smoked that Broncano Silver, which I was not expecting much of, especially being next to San Andreas, but it was definitely a different take on it.
Hmm.
For me, it's just a ton of earth and stuff like that, and the blend can't really dodge it. But that cigar was a bit different, so that was interesting. But for the most part, yeah, the anything with that wrapper I just feel like it's going to be an earth-driven profile, and
Yeah,
I'm looking for people to like blend a bit differently instead of just you know, because I think for most part you could just throw that wrapper on something and you're going to get that profile regardless of
Just
what you
same. Yeah.
put in the
yeah,
blend.
that's
So you got to do something else to kind of I
Yeah.
think differentiate yourself or to create something that's a bit unique.
that's what
And a lot of people
yeah,
aren't doing that.
that's what happened with the Epernay Tuanella. Is they put
Hmm.
that San Andreas. That's exactly. It wasn't a bad cigar. In fact, I'm going to give it another shot to see. But that's Aaron. That's exactly what was my experience with the Epernay Tuanella this year.
Yeah, that's another cigar that had a fair amount of buzz at the trade show, but it just didn't deliver for me. So
Yeah. Yeah. I commented on your guys' video. I know like doing what we're doing, it's
yeah,
best for me to review as much as possible, but
right.
my heart, I have so much love for the original Epernay. I
Yeah.
Right.
can't I can't do it with the San Andreas. I
Yeah.
can't even try to be disappointed in it,
Yeah.
you know.
It's
So
not a
Uh,
bad cigar, but I hear what you're saying, Matt. That's a
yeah,
legendary cigar line. I mean, in
yeah.
history, yeah.
so good. The only is the 30th, the Rocky Patel 30th, is that San Andreas?
Yes.
Okay, I enjoy that cigar, and I know Rocky. He's known for just throwing so many cigars out there, but I
Yeah.
love that. Is very good for my
Okay.
palate.
Now, did you smoke the limited one or the regular line?
Just the Robusto
Okay.
regular line.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
I
think what they gave out at the show and what was shipped was a lot better. It was
okay.
very
Oh, well, that's
different.
good.
I was
Because
going to
that
say that.
okay.
how many times have
You
how
lose
many
the other
times
way
have we seen the
around.
opposite of that?
You lose the other way around, and Matt's right.
Yeah, it's usually the other way around.
It is San Andreas,
Yeah.
but there was something off at the show with that one. And that's why I think it took so long to get out.
I mean, that's
Ah,
that's that's how they should do it. They should release the restrained one at the show, and you're like, that's okay. and then release the banger at retail, and that way you manage expectations a little bit better.
I think there's Rocky's someone who has worked very well with San Andreas rappers over the years. He
Yes.
seems to know how to
Yes.
work with that rapper. So
Yes.
when I had it at the show, I was a little disappointed actually. But when I did smoke and I did smoke what came to the store, I haven't smoked the Coffin release, which is limited yet. I was like, okay, this is what I expect Rocky Patel to do with a San Andreas rapper. It is very good.
Yeah. And like I said before, the not Tetra, the My Father, the Flor de las Antillas,
Right.
the TAA San Andreas, that cigar, since the Flor de las Antillas 10-year anniversary that came out in 22, that's been my favorite cigar since that one. Great San Andreas.
Nice.
I'm just curious, did you smoke the JJ yet? 10th anniversary or 20th anniversary?
Yeah, I didn't like it.
I gotta give it another shot. I liked it, but I'm hearing mixed things on it as well. I haven't reviewed it yet, but it's coming
Yeah.
up, and I gotta put it through a review cycle, see how it finally comes out. A lot of
Yeah,
people tell me.
I like the original. I like the original Series JJ. I think that's a very good cigar.
Yes,
Great
it's a
cigar.
very good cigar, and I've
Yeah.
got a box of it in my humidor. Yes,
Yeah.
whittling them down slowly.
So another tobacco that I think has seen a little bit of a jump lately is Pennsylvania broadleaf. So I think as another tobacco that's kind of trying to take on that Maduro offering. So thoughts on Pennsylvania broadleaf releases popping up, especially as a wrapper. I mean, it's always kind of been used a little bit as a filler or something like that, but
This might be a little bit of a bitch move for me, but I really only trust one company when I see Pennsylvania broadleaf for a wrapper.
Skip.
There's only one company. Well, Skip, yes, but Skip doesn't use it that often. Skip's pretty rare with Pennsylvania. There's only one other company that really uses Pennsylvania on the semi-regular, and that's Black Label. And that's the only company that
Yeah.
I've found he understands what the tobacco is and isn't. And I feel like, James Brown blends to the strengths and weaknesses of that tobacco. I think too often it seems like, looking from the outside, people just slap Pennsylvania broadleaf expecting it to perform the same as Connecticut. And it's like, those tobaccos are not the same at all. And if you just take your blend and put Pennsylvania broadleaf on it, it is not going to be good. It's going to be discordant and unbalanced, and
That was my complaint about that V So Horny 555. That's what that seemed like, and it seemed like it was like a Cro-Magnon put on with that wrapper. I'm not saying it was, but that's what it seemed like. I'll tell you who is doing some good stuff with Pennsylvania broadleaf. He just doesn't do enough of it. It's Hector at Espinoza. So under duress, he gave me the TAA cigar, right? And I smoked it, and it wasn't under duress. I was honest. It was very good. Okay. And he also did a dojo release with that Pennsylvania. So they've worked with that wrapper well. I'd like to see Espinosa maybe come out with a core line with it now and see if they can actually,
Yeah, look, more
yeah.
Pennsylvania broadleaf from Espinosa Les Habano. Sure, that would be.
Yeah,
I would definitely give that
Yeah.
thumbs up. I know, bro would not be okay with that because he loves his Habano, but.
Yeah. They should have never gave that release to the TAA, in my opinion. It was too good a release to give to them.
I mean,
But
feel
it's a good
like
cigar.
Aaron,
I can't take it away. It's a good cigar. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think any Pennsylvania broadleaf hit our list. I think all the broadleaf that hit our list this year was Connecticut broadleaf, which was weird because there wasn't a lot of Connecticut broadleaf releases, but they seemed to land on our list.
But you're right about James. James Brown has found a way to make Pennsylvania broadleaf work and work well.
Yeah.
He has.
Yeah.
He really has. So, and that's why I just think so much of him as a blender too.
Well, like I said, the only reason I mentioned in my name is because I feel like if you look at his portfolio, I think uses it more in his releases than most companies have because he hasn't been afraid to use it.
Right.
I agree with Matt. Skip has definitely used it and used it very well, but Skip uses a variety of different wrappers, so it's not like he's got 5 releases with Pennsylvania broadleaf on them.
Yeah. I think the last PA broadleaf I had was probably that V So Horny. And I was smoking it with other people. I think they enjoyed it a little bit more than I did. It was one of those cigars that I felt Like it was
Mm.
just this. It was
Mm.
so strong with
Right.
the
It was so
nicotine.
unbound. Yeah. It was
So
a strong cigar. I agree with you. Yeah.
it kind of like it took away from the experience, from the flavor experience, because I was like worried about getting nicotine sick the entire
Yeah.
time I was having it.
All right. Another trend, and this is another, I think, multi-year trend here is anniversary releases. Um, I think we're at the point where it's just that, Coop had a thing about LE saturation. I think we're at the anniversary saturation now. I mean, there's so many companies that have anniversary releases that it just doesn't seem like it's special anymore,
Yeah.
which I think is a disappointment. And uh, it's not that they're not special because there's so many of them. It's just that there's not special because the cigars aren't actually special. Like they don't taste better than other stuff that the brands make. Sometimes they're actually a step down, things like that. So I'd be curious your guys' thoughts on the anniversary stuff.
You know, I thought Romeo Julieta did a great job with the 150. I actually think Altadis did well
Yes.
with both the 150 and the Monty 90s. I think the Monty 90s got more overshadowed by the Romeo 150, and but I thought the 150 they did a good job with it for sure. So, but most of the other companies, and I have to be honest with you, I haven't smoked the HVC 10th anniversary releases, so I need to
Good.
smoke those.
Yep.
To be fair with those, this is going to be a huge year for anniversary cigars
Hmm.
in
Yep.
20 because I mentioned Avo, but it's also Padron. You have two
Yeah.
100th anniversaries this year, so that's going to be
Oh.
big. So I'm curious to see how they go for sure.
Mm.
But do I need a 17 and a half year anniversary from Viaje? No, I don't really.
Yeah.
Booth, maybe for Matt Booth,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think maybe stick to 10 year, 10 years seems like, 5 years, 7 years. I don't think that needs an anniversary release. I think it, I put in my notes that like, it's hard for me to know because I've just dialed out on LEs and anniversaries at this point because like you said, it's just so saturated. So I don't know. I don't know if I noticed more this year than last year. It just kind of seemed like the same, which is to say, it like I saw another anniversary release come out announcement. I just kind of rolled my eyes and went, whatever. Like it just doesn't. I don't care,
Hmm.
which is
Yeah,
really not what you want for an anniversary. I don't think.
yeah. And
Paladino
it's
did
just
good though.
it
Sorry.
yeah, the 85th was very good from
Hmm.
my experience. But yeah, it's just sensory overload.
Yeah.
Like so many
Yeah.
companies are doing it, and at the same time, the cigars aren't that much better than the original, line that it's the 10th anniversary for.
Yeah.
Um, it's just, if the cigars were markedly better than the original, then that would be something to get excited about. But for the most part, it hasn't been the case.
Yeah.
Um, there's been some really good ones, but like, are they worlds above better than
They
the other ones?
no,
No.
No.
no. You mentioned that you guys mentioned that Dapper earlier on, and my opinion is when you're doing an anniversary cigar, go with who took you to the dance for that and try to elevate it. Don't try to go to someone who you've never worked with before, who maybe doesn't understand the vision you've had for these 10 years. You may be able to explain it well to them, but it's the factory you've worked with for 10 years. They should be able to give you an elevated project, in my opinion. And
Hmm.
I
And
and in
unless
most
you want to
cases, I've
do
never seen this work. I've never seen it work when you go to another factory and do it.
yeah, unless you want to make your anniversary a Connecticut broadleaf out of Naxa, in which case I'll give thumbs of approval. Go for it because it'll probably work out. But I agree, Coop. I mean, we've talked about this before, where why would you as a brand celebrate that anniversary by doing it with a different factory and different tobaccos? Like that doesn't really tell the story of your brand to
No,
me.
Yeah.
it
But
doesn't. I
I
mean,
don't
we've
know.
seen like Epic do it, like, and
Hmm.
it didn't work. Sock is doing something a little different. He's working with the same factory, but he's doing a very different blend with the Jubilee.
Yeah.
That I'm okay with. Okay, that's okay. You work with the factory, challenge yourself there, and see if you can come up. That I'm okay with because you're working with the factories you work with. So, but when you like just go into this and do it, and the question is, are you actually getting a blend? Are you getting something that they had sitting around? That's
Yeah.
the other question.
Yeah. Like that foundation tenure that big Solomon. Like
Yep.
I see it all the time at work. And like, should I review that? It's $40. I don't really care.
But at least
Okay,
it's from AJ who he's worked with. So
it is from yeah. So I was
True.
going to say, so
Good
it is
point.
from AJ, and weirdly, as you know, someone who's probably been the most critical about some of the foundation releases, I actually thought that 10th anniversary was quite good. And I've certainly been critical of AJ releases. I thought that was a good example of him releasing something in a special size, which that definitely gets a thumbs up because you're not releasing as same size as something else you've done, and you've stuck with a factory that you've dealt with in the past. And I thought it delivered. I mean, $40. Well, that's going to be up to the consumer to decide whether that's worth it. But price point aside, the blend delivered. So if you can afford it, Matt, I would say go for it.
All right.
I'm partial to the Night Commander.
Yeah, you like the night.
That's a good
the night
cigar.
Commander.
Oh,
That's a good cigar.
Also not a cheap date.
I just bought a second box of those, so I know they're not a cheap date. So
All
Hashtag
right.
no receipts.
Yeah.
no receipts.
Some interesting industry topics, and kind of sticking with the cigars. Let's talk a little bit about construction.
Oh my God.
In your guys' opinion, in comparison to 2024, was the construction for most cigars equal, better, or worse than the previous year?
I'll let
Start
other
with
people
Joe.
go
Oh, you.
because I mean I'm gonna go for like 20 minutes on this. So
I personally, I haven't like noticed any huge difference from last year or 2024 to 2025. Um, I'll just say again, it's a good thing that HVC is making their own cigars now, and
Yeah.
that helps with the construction portion. And same goes for foundation, same goes for Gallus for warp stuff.
Mhm.
And I think you know where I'm going with that.
Yeah. All right, Coop.
I'm looking at the numbers, right? So in 2024, the average review score is 88.45. And in 25, it was 88.54. And I know I kind of have a mix of 2024 and 25, but that's statistically about even. Like it's only 900ths of a difference in points. But when I was doing this prep for the show and I looked at this, what I noticed was that score going a little bit higher was trending for some of the cigars that were at the top of the list, which seemed better quality.
oh.
But the ones that were lower on the list seemed to trend lower quality.
Right.
So the answer is I think it went down slightly this past year.
Mm-hmm.
I just noticed burn issues, construction issues, cigars plugging and it just when I was going through it just seemed like there was more of those, but it was helped by some really good cigars at the top, which kind of ultimately brought the scores up just slightly higher.
Yeah, I feel like it took a bit of a step down.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm assessing. Probably most of it took a step down.
I think there were definitely more reviews for us than normal where, um, one of us would have a kind of a wildly different construction experience than the others. So a little bit of a consistency issue across the cigars. So, someone would have a very tight draw or just a really bad burn or something like that, while others maybe had, very good construction. But I think we had a bit more of that popping up. And I think across the board, maybe some just not as good burn, not as good draws kind of going on as well. So I think there was definitely a bit of a step down. And I think that trends with just kind of what's going on in the factories with having a hard time retaining talent, or maybe a lot more people that are aging out and having to bring in younger, younger people to try to take that on, and they just don't have as good of a process to transfer that knowledge and things like that. So I think that's probably part of it. All right, John, go for it.
Yeah, so before you go to Captain Negative Town, I'll start by the positive and say I think factories who are known for quality, so Perdomo, Roma Craft Tabac, La Vega Negra, AJ Fernandez, Oliva, Hoya de Nicaragua, their construction, even Noxa, their construction was exactly what I would expect it to be. That is, near perfect draw, perfect burn, no issues whatsoever. And that was consistent last year. That was consistent this year. I found myself very rarely having to make any notes whatsoever. Maybe the occasional touch up, that's it. But outside of those factories, and so I can add to this by saying Luigi from Cigar Medics loaded me up with a draw machine, which I really appreciated. And so it allowed me to do a little bit more of a analytical analysis of draw, which I was already doing burn, but now I could actually do a measure of draw. So instead of me saying, well, I feel like it's snug or I feel like it's loose, I actually had a measurement that I could, actually get a true measure, just like Nick does on all the cigars at Perdomo. So I could say, okay, well, this is 40 inches of water, 8 inches of water, 100 inches of water, whatever. And so I felt a lot more confident in the measures, and I can absolutely say that, like Aaron said, 2025 was a noticeable step down from 2024 to the point where I actually got to the point where I got tired of writing about burn and draw issues. Like it was just, I would say more than 50% of this, it felt like more than 50% of the cigars I reviewed this year, I had to write something about a draw issue or a burn issue or both. And that's a weird place to be in because I feel like 5 or 6 years ago, I could confidently say you could randomly pick a non-Cuban up off the shelf and you're going to have perfect burn, perfect draw. You don't have to worry about it. It's just not an issue. And now I feel like, and this is regardless of price point, buying a $35 cigar doesn't guarantee you perfect construction. Buying a $50 cigar doesn't guarantee you perfect construction. And I think I'm a lot more tolerant of a $10 cigar that might be slightly snug versus if we're paying $30 or $40 for a cigar, the one thing I don't want to be writing about is the fact that I had to relight it or the fact that the draw was, 70 inches of water. And, if I was in a lounge, I might actually go up to the owner and say, I need a new one. Cause like this isn't acceptable for this price point. So, I don't want to write about it. Honestly, I'd rather not. I'd rather just smoke the cigar and talk about the flavor composition. I don't want to be writing 3 paragraphs about how I had to relight the cigar 3 times. Like that's just not fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. All right, let's pivot over to pricing. So, continuing to see increase in pricing, I think overall, and that could be either more ultra premiums than normal, a natural increase based on whatever tariffs, things like that. I know at least for developing palettes, we track our average score for all of our reviews, and it went up $2 over the previous year.
On average.
Wait,
On
yeah,
average.
mine went up.
Average.
Yeah. So, thoughts on the trend of cigar pricing?
I did a lot of go ahead, Matt.
I would say like there has to be the bubble has to pop soon. Like it's to a point now to where it's like once again, you guys are saying you're experiencing construction issues with like $35+ cigars like that. And the only people who are going to make a change are the consumers. Yeah. And is that something that's viable within any certain amount of time, any certain window of time? I don't fucking know. But yeah, it's absurd. That's why I have so much adoration for the cigar I'm smoking because it's $12.
Yep.
It's it's a LE, a 10-year anniversary. That's $12 and it fucking kills. It's a great cigar. Mm-hmm. And if price were like more of a, in my review structure, if it were more of a, top of mind, this would be my number 1 cigar of the year.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't be the case to where like a $12 cigar, it just seems like such a steal. Mm-hmm. It does. And right now that's a fucking steal.
Yep.
It's like the average price went from like $8 to $15 within like a 7-year span. Mm-hmm. That's insane.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get the impression, and we haven't posted our analytics yet, so I'll be really interested when we do. But I don't feel like our number is being skewed by ultra premiums because I feel like we smoked roughly the same number of Davidoffs, maybe even less than we normally do. We smoke the same number of sort of crazy high-end ultra premiums that we normally do. So I don't feel like that's dragging the number up. I think it's just, like Matt just said, I think it's just the fact that the average brand now has moved up $3 to $4 in price in the marketplace. And so, what was the number? I think it was like 19 and change, Aaron,
Yeah,
for our average.
1944, I think was our average price.
Jesus
And like,
Christ.
it is crazy because you think about the number, like the average cigar smoker, I think is probably more in the blue collar spectrum. And, to your point, Matt, like at what point does a blue collar smoker go, I'm not spending 16 and change for a cigar, right? I'm just not. I'm either going to buy something cheaper or find something else in your portfolio that's more value driven, or I'm going to switch to another brand that's more affordable because I'm just the guys who are smoking their one cigar a day in the lounge, I just don't know that they can stomach their or finance the extra $4 or $5 a cigar every day for the week. I feel like that there's got to be a breaking point. And I feel like we're getting there. It seems like we're getting there.
Hopefully.
But I mean, it's not like materials are getting cheaper. It's not like,
Yeah.
but I don't think materials alone justifies, in my mind, a $2 bump across the board. There are plenty of companies out there that are still producing cigars in the sub $13 price point that are bangers, that are consistent, that are delivering on construction. So, I don't know how a brand who doesn't have a factory can
Yeah.
can can support that. Like I don't know where that upper boundary is for them, but we got to be getting there soon, I would think.
I
Yeah,
think it's a
and
place
like
where go ahead, man.
I would say, like, props to a company like Perdomo,
Yeah.
because they
Yeah.
they 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 are the epitome of consistency. And like the new
Totally.
legacy came out, it's not exactly cheap, but it's not expensive by any means.
Yeah.
And it is such an impressive, like the entire line, the Maduro, Connecticut, Nicaragua, Chagro,
Yeah.
every one of them is phenomenal.
Yep.
So props to him. The quality control that he has is insurmountable. Like you
I've
cannot
seen it.
compete with
It
it.
is
Yeah,
insurmountable. Yeah.
yeah. So I just want to say props to a company like Perdomo, because they deserve all the adoration that they have coming to them.
Yeah, it's something to keep an eye on is that if you look at long-standing brands, that where a company might do a price increase and it might be a 3 to 5% kind of increase, things like that. Those brands are still pretty affordable.
Yeah.
Where the new releases are the ones that carry the heavier price point because they can launch it at that higher price point. If you moved a long-standing brand and you try to bump $4 up on it, and it's it was originally $9 and you're trying to take them to 13, those guys are going to go somewhere else. So like
Yeah.
you can go back to old offerings and still stay at a reasonable price point, but new releases are just crazy on that. Like that's where they're trying to be able to recoup, I think, some money in regards to doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how viable it's going to be. We just talked about a bunch of new brands that hit the market in 2025. And obviously, they're at the mercy of coming out of someone else's factory because you can't launch and have your own factory. So you're going to be price constrained there for sure. Is it even viable in 2026 if you have to launch a new brand and your price point entry the market is 16 and change? I don't know. I don't know if you can make it as a new company.
No.
It's almost like a company has to launch as a luxury brand
Yeah.
at
Right.
this point. Which sucks that's the case, and it that shouldn't be the case because they don't have the name recognition to garner that. But it's almost like that has to be the case for someone who's not vertically integrated.
Yeah.
I was just telling the guys before the show, I smoked the Don Carlos 90th. And that cigar was one that was supposed to sell at $13.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you, Fuente putting out a $13 cigar of that quality, and I get it was a little higher in a lot of stores, but it still wasn't like $40 is what I was saying. They did it. They proved you can do it, is what I'm saying. So,
Yeah, but I mean,
but they don't have a lot of it. So they would kill it if they were able to produce that cigar regularly. They would kill it with the cigar.
Yeah, and I think the disconnect there, Coop, is they can do that because they're a brand that's been around for 30 whatever years now, 36, whatever that number is. And they've established themselves in the marketplace. They've consistently put out good product. They have great packaging, and so they've checked all those boxes. But if you're looking at it, putting on the retailer hat, if Don Luis comes out and he's like, yeah, I'm coming out with this new brand. It's 1635. It's out of a factory you've never heard of. Do you want to put me on the shelf? The average retailer is going to be like, why the hell would I give you shelf space for a brand no one's ever heard of, from a factory no one's ever heard of? You have no history. You could be gone by the end of the year when you realize how competitive the marketplace is. I'm not going to take a flyer when there's all these other established brands and, even new companies that I took a chance on last year that are selling well, and they're a buck or a buck and a half cheaper than what you are. I get a little worried about what the marketplace is going to look like for new companies, because it seems like, and I don't know what that price point is, but it seems like it's going to be impossible for a new company to come out and be successful, because that's a lot of hurdles to jump.
Jerry was an interesting story for me in the last year and a half. So they have come out with some higher price cigars. This Cameron Reserve is over 20. The 85th was also over 20. But you know what? They were able to articulate a tobacco story with those blends. And they were able to articulate why those cigars, and they have slightly elevated packaging. But what I see a lot of companies doing is they'll come out with the elevated packaging, but they're doing the same old blends.
Right.
And that's where I'm seeing the problem. So I do think there's always a market for what I call the Rob Report cigar. All right. So I did review the Oro Blanco this year, the $750 cigar, which I got for free, no receipts. It was the highest scoring cigar I've had in a long time on Coop, but it also wasn't, it wasn't practical to get that cigar again and review it. That's a Rob Report cigar. I think that's different than what we're talking about, which is a lot of these post $20 cigars, and then they really post $20 blends that are behind them is the question. And some cases, yes, like JRE, but a lot of cases, no.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think there's a difference. Aladino is a great example of where, in a lot of cases, I've said I feel like Aladino seems disproportionately inexpensive for what it delivers in the marketplace.
Yeah.
When we talk about the Aladino Cameroon Lancero, which was like 9 and change, and I'm like, is that number right? That doesn't seem right to me. That can't be right, but it is right. And so I think, if you are releasing a bunch of core lines that are at a very affordable price, and then every once in a while you're like, yeah, we've got this limited, it's $22 or $20. Okay, well that's fine, because your core line is half that price.
Yeah.
So, versus what's your core line? Well, our core line starts at $16 and goes up to 25, and it's like, whoa, okay. Ouch.
Yeah. But the other thing I'll notice is the what I will say is I thought the amount of Rob Report cigars I saw this year were kind of flat from the previous years. Maybe I don't think there was a big increase in those. And those are a totally different market, is what I tell everyone. Like when you start getting even those Fuente Padrones, you're in a different space you're dealing with at that point, because these are not everyday cigars that you're getting. So
did you get the impression, Coop, because I kind of alluded to it, but did you get the impression there was a lot more of those this, like, call it 2025 versus 2024? Like, did it seem like there was more the same? Like, what was your take on that?
I thought it was about flat. I thought it stayed about flat. The two there were 3 cigars I reviewed over $100, but 2 of them came out the year before, and that was one of the Fuente Padrones, and the other one was the Monte Cristo Doble Diamante.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't see a lot. Like Davidoff did theirs this year, which was the big one.
Right.
But I didn't see a lot more of those over $100 cigars this year. It seemed like it was flat from the year before.
Yeah, that conviction. Did
I
really
love that. I love that conviction, though, but it was too high priced. I'll be the first one to tell you. If they would have sold that for $30, they'd kill it with that cigar.
Yeah. I got it at discounted price, and I was still like, what the hell? I
I,
mean,
re- I really liked it actually, but it's 100. I can't say pay 100. I can't say even splurge on it. Is to be honest with you.
I mean,
yeah,
look, we go ahead.
I would say like if I'm going to spend $100 on a cigar, well, for one, I wouldn't do that. But if I
Yeah,
were,
Yeah,
it would be a Cuban, most likely.
right.
right. I know we like to joke about, we poke fun at the reviewers or bloggers are only in it for the free cigars, but like shit, man, when cigars are 19 and change on average, can you blame a guy? Like, holy crap. I mean, you
We're,
know, your budget for cigars has gone
uh,
up a lot over the last few years.
there's only two industries that take that stuff. It's us in the fashion industry. The
Right.
fashion industry gets killed over it with all people getting free clothes. They get
Yeah.
killed worse. That's the only one I think that gets killed worse than us.
But even the fashion industry, I don't think they've seen. It's not like the fashion industry went up 50% in in the average price of
No,
clothing. You
they
know what I
had them,
mean?
but they have their hot fashion thing
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
Is
yeah,
they've
yeah,
always had that segment. That's been around forever though.
yeah.
It's a little newer, I think, with us here that we didn't. Yeah, I remember like if you go back 15 years ago when Gurkha came out with that $100 cigar, that was
Right.
like a rarity. Yeah,
Yeah, people lost their minds.
yeah.
All right. This Tabacalera de Garcia and Chenzi situation seems like a pretty wild story going on with this
Crazy.
Yeah.
situation. Do you do you think that gets settled here anytime soon, or is this just going to be a long drawn out process?
I'll let Coops. I'm sure got a lot to say. First of all, props to Charlie for breaking the story because he
Great,
put a lot of work into
great
that.
job he did. Yes.
Did a great job. Made it very easily digestible for the layman. Um, I think we're going to see long-term ramifications, not just for the Habanos, not just for Altadis from a result of production having to be shifted. But you look at one of the largest manufacturers of cigars shifting production to other factories. I've talked about this on forums. That's going to put pressure on, we're just talking about smaller brands. If you're a smaller brand and you're contracting out of AJ Fernandez and a larger company comes in and says, "Hey, AJ, we need 5 million cigar production and we're going to pay you and we're going to pay our bills." And that's a consistent, you know, that's a uh, consistent payday for you, right? That's going to put a lot of pressure on these smaller brands who are coming in and saying, "Yeah, I'm going to produce 50,000 cigars and maybe I'll pay my bill, but maybe I need to sell through these cigars before I pay you." That's going to be a very, very challenging thing to get factories to go on board with these smaller brands. And I can't blame any factory to say, I'm going to take the business of the guy who's taking big production, guaranteed money. And if I do well, that production probably stays with me. It's unlikely that production is going to shift away from that factory anytime soon. So like I worry going to the PCA, what's the outcome going to be for all these other, because there is a limited, it's not like we can just drop down a 6,000 square foot factory and start production tomorrow. That takes years to develop. And we're, like Aaron was saying, we're already kind of seeing a big drain on resources for rolling. So yeah. Coop.
They had a great year all to this, if you think about it though. This
Mm-hmm.
kind of put a little bit of a black cloud at the end. But in terms of the big four, Altadis was by far performing at the best level of the other three of their
Yeah.
three competitors. They were dealing at a really good level. I know this puts a little bit of a damper, but it shouldn't take away from what they did all year. But I don't know how to read this situation because to move the stuff they need to move, I don't think it's going to affect their new releases as much, right? Because they can go to AJ and Placencia and get as many new releases as they need. But they have a problem with their core high selling releases right now that they have to address, and I'm talking about, Reserva Real, Monty White, things like that, which are staples that they sell a lot of cigars with that maybe aren't the sexiest ones that we have, but suddenly, they got to figure that piece out. And that's the piece that ultimately fuels the engine. I want to say the glass half full guy in me, which I'm not often, says, I know some of the people higher up in Altus Tobacco USA, and I want to say they'll figure a way to get around this. But we've never seen anything like this happen before.
Mhm.
It's a bizarre
Never.
situation. So I don't know. Like I said, you're dealing with now the Justice and Treasury departments in here. I
Yeah.
don't know how. There's not a precedent for anything like this before. So it's going to be very interesting. I think there's some. Confidence in me says they find a way out of this, but I don't have any. I don't have a roadmap for what that is right now.
Yeah.
And I think the challenge therein is that any Justice Department, especially at that level, when you're talking about international law, it does not move quickly. So it's not something I anticipate being solved. Maybe even this year. Like this could be a multi-year thing before it gets addressed. To say nothing of the fact that he's now in custody in China. Um, that's not going to play out well for him.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would play out differently if he would have been brought to justice in the United States. I don't think so, because I think the greater sort of global international fallout doesn't really get resolved because he put all those pieces in place, and to unravel all that and to fix that takes time and a lot of it, I think.
Yeah. The only other thing I was wondering in the last few weeks, there's another factory in La Romana. You guys know what that factory is? It's a
Mhm.
it's the Villiger factory down there,
Yeah,
the
okay.
Abam
Right.
factory. That's the only, like, if they're going to try to still make cigars out of La Romana, that's probably the one factory I'd be looking at right now, seeing what you could do with if. And I don't know if the Justice Department's going to even allow that, but I'm just saying that is an option if they could somehow come to an agreement. I don't know if they have the capacity in that factory either, but it
Right.
is one way to still make cigars in that area where they're based right now. But I think that's more. I think that's an easier said than done solution, in my opinion,
Hmm.
because they don't have a relationship with them like they have with Placencia and AJ,
Yeah.
Yeah.
who's done very good for. Like I said, you'll see stuff at the trade show from them because they could get some. They probably already had a couple releases out of those, and there'll be some LEs, and there'll be stuff where people will want to get it. But it's the problem I see is with the older heritage stuff that they got to figure that problem out.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. California UTL. So, California always on the forefront of taking our rights away. So, Matt, probably this is near and dear to your heart, working in retail and being in California. So,
Yeah.
basically, brands have to register the lines that they want to be able to sell in the state of California. And brands have chosen either to not do it at all or to only register some of their lines in California. Um, what are your thoughts on this?
Uh, for one, first I have to say huge props to Andrew at work, Drew, smoker in chief. He's been doing so much work on the back end to at the forefront of retailers to make sure everything is done above board as smoothly as possible. Not trying to fight it, just trying to make sure things are done as smooth as possible. He's been doing just countless hours of work, at home. Just he's been doing a lot, and just talking to all sorts of people, at different levels of government and all that stuff. I don't know like what I can and can't say, but
Right.
he's just been doing a shit ton of work, and creating like helping with like the portal stuff with companies, with manufacturers, and it sucks. It fucking sucks. There's some brands that like I in California, like smaller brands, I can't get anymore.
Yeah.
An example is Definition Cigars. I love his Noir. I can't buy that cigar anymore from him
Yeah.
direct, because he's not registering in California because it financially doesn't make sense right
Right.
now. Yeah, it's not a shit show, but it's the rollout has been there's been portions of it that have been a shit show that should have been like a lot more standardized
Mhm.
prior. But yeah, it's a it's a lot and it sucks.
Yeah.
And I know for a lot of smaller retailers in California, it's affecting them a lot more.
Right.
So
I mean, it kind of comes across like the dimming regulations when they originally launched, where there was this sort of panic of, we're coming out with this new process. No one really understands it. We don't really understand it, and you have a limited amount of time to react to this, and you only have one shot at this. And of course, and the whole legislation. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but it's bass backwards, as they would say, because you're proving you're not flavored, and it's like, well, that's not how it should work. You should have to prove you are flavored. You shouldn't have to prove everything you sell isn't flavored like that. That I think is obviously it works for California because it's just another way to put their thumb down on tobacco. But boy, oh boy, is it like they, I don't know how they could have made it more arduous than what they did. Um, almost Canadian actually, in how they rolled that out.
I'll ask a question there, and particularly, I'm curious on Matt's answer on this. There was some criticism that PCA dropped the ball here. You working on the retail end, if you want to answer that, if you don't have to, what are your thoughts on that?
They were very ineptly prepared. Like there's all sorts of delays and whatnot, and like the bill was passed 2 years ago, and this hit everybody just overnight in September. By the time that they had to register to make sure that there was like a 90-day to be prior to make sure that they were good for January 1st. In my opinion, PCA was extremely inept at communicating to manufacturers like what needs to be done and how.
I thought they missed was a grassroots effort on this. Like they have the mechanisms like cigaraction.org. They didn't use that, right? And I understand they sometimes do want to keep some things behind the scenes, but I think grassroots would have helped here in this case, not
Mm-hmm.
hurt it. For sure. The other thing is I heard this story a year ago from Dave Garofalo in New Hampshire reported this
Yeah.
story. That's where I first heard it, and then Halfwheel reported it probably a couple weeks after that. So I was starting to hear about this late 2024. This was starting to go on, and again, no disrespect to David. He's a retailer in New Hampshire, and he was aware of this before. Like he made everyone. He was the first one I know who made this public, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I think that something just seemed like it could have been a better response, and I was just curious on your end of that because it just seemed like they could have done better with this.
They absolutely could have.
And
And
it's not
like,
all PCA, by the way. I'm talking all the trade associations. So this is not,
yeah,
and then I think CRA missed it too. So
yeah.
yeah,
And like the thing is with a lot of these organizations, the first thing, like not first thing, but one of the things they want to do is fight it.
Yeah.
And it's like at this point we can't fight it. Like it's going, the laws passed 2 years ago. Like we're it's being rolled out. Like we
Right.
can't fight it with lawsuits and shit like that, which are still, some are pending
Right.
with some manufacturers. The communication, like we're not living in the age of Pony Express. Like like
that's my point. Is yes,
yes, it's so easy to communicate to anybody you want within the blink of an eye. And they gravely underutilize current technology to be able to do that.
I think there was an opportunity to do it. I think it would have helped. I'm not saying they dropped it completely. I'm not saying that any of the trade associations, but to your point, there were mechanisms. Grassroots is powerful in this country. It still is it still makes a difference when you send those letters sometimes to your local representatives. I've seen it happen in certain cases. I could go back with Tampa and S chip, even with stuff with that where they turned the congresswoman's opinion around about the cigar industry when they convinced her how important it was. So I do think this. So yeah, I would have liked to. I think they could have done better with this one, is what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
All right, let's talk about some relationships that changed in 2025. And I'll list two and then we can kind of chat about it. So Fuente Mirafil and Hoya de Nicaragua and Drew Estate. So different relationships, I guess, would be the way to look at
Yeah.
it, but still some pretty major players that have changed a bit. So
Yeah.
Down the shitter.
yeah, yeah. So thoughts on either of these?
I'll start with the Fuente Mirafel. Like I anytime I see Carlito, he's always happy. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's Carlito. Um, I don't know if you guys saw the same Instagram reel, but he was talking about like, you know, people been saying like we can't get access to Cameroon rapper, like we
Right.
have truckloads of this coming in. This is my father's favorite rapper. Like he was pissed,
He
Yeah.
like
was.
pissed, or
He
not
was. He was.
pissed and passionate. And in my opinion, my perspective, that's very out of character for Carlito. And something on the back end has to have gone on to where that brought that out of him. So that's one of the key points that I gleaned from the Mirafeld Fuente thing. There's a lot of stuff you hear going on behind the scenes. I can't quantify any of that, but but it's safe to say that that relationship soured, and they'll be going different directions. And you're seeing, Mirafeld come out with a bunch of new cigars too.
Yeah.
Not just their Ernest, Meyer, whatever those cigars, but you're seeing like the more budget friendly stuff come out as well. So they're quickly
Yeah. Well, they've been out for a
in
while.
response to this.
Those have been out for a while. They're just coming to the U.S. for the first time, but still, it's
Yeah.
expanding their market. To your point,
Yeah.
Exactly.
part of and look, I know both parties very well, but part of it, look, for years the message was the Mirafel Cameron, right? And ultimately, we were told that's the best Cameron, right?
Mhm.
And now that relationship's gone, they kind of have to undo that, right? It kind of that was kind of created. I'm not saying it was the wrong thing at the time to do. Um, that being said, Carlito's going to find Cameroon. Like I always felt there was never going to be a Cameroon shortage. There's other people who do broker Cameroon in the world. I think the distribution issue outside of in the Eastern Hemisphere is a bigger problem right now. That they're trying to address right now. That's a big problem right now. And Mirafel kind of sold to the distributors, and now Fuente's kind of got to change their business model, and that may be a tougher adjustment that they're going to have to go through over the next year. That we won't see that effect as much in the U.S. I don't think we're going to see any problems with. We're going to get the same releases as we get, and ultimately people are going to judge the quality of it. If you notice, though, a lot of the Fuente releases that came out at the trade show this year were not Cameron releases, most of them, right? They were Mexican San Andreas. They have the Black Pinks. They have the new Añejo that's going to have a Habano wrapper. I just talked about the Don Carlos. So they kind of are trying to expand their wings in other places right now, too, to show that, hey, they're not just dependent totally on this Cameron. And of course, they have Opus X. They have Opus X ain't going anywhere, and Opus X ain't gonna really be affected by this, so they're gonna be fine with that. But I do think people were saying stuff about Carlito that they had no knowledge about. I mean, I saw comments that were written on the Coop page. I had to delete a few of these comments. I'm like, where are you getting this information? Like, how do you know this? Like, I don't know this. And I could ask Carlito certain questions, and there's things he had. Like, there was just people shooting from the hip on this, right? I understand that, so I can understand that total response he gave on that. And ultimately, like I said, the Cameroon's coming from the same regions, and it's just being brokered differently right now out of Cameroon. So they're gonna be fine with that. But nonetheless, I think they're gonna have to kind of convince people on that because, like I said, we were trained. Mirafel is Cameroon. That was kind of the message we've been given for years. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think not being an insider on that because it came out of nowhere seemingly. I think a lot of the commentary was probably born from, there was an announcement about the relationship ending, and I think that Fuente being a large brand and obviously having a lot of people who are very passionate about the Fuente brand, I think they were expecting maybe a follow-up release or a follow-up announcement saying, everything's fine. We have a plan in place, don't worry. And I think it was the lead time between the announcement of this relationship is ending and that follow-up message that probably stirred a lot of the online commentary because people didn't have anything to go on. And of course, especially in the cigar industry, when people don't have anything to go on, well, that's when the rumor mill gets going. And yeah, that's where I think a lot of that came from.
but if there is a term like getting into the legalese, and I'm not a lawyer by any means, but if there's a termination of a relationship, sometimes there is a gag order. And you can't just
100%.
be, yeah, you just can't be transparent on everything. Your lawyers are probably
100%.
advising you on certain things. So, and we're just
But
so used to we're so used to everything being transparent in the cigar industry, and it's not always, it can't always be the case like that.
but I think when you have a brand at that level, you also have it's like when a shareholder announcement comes out, you can provide the information, but you also have to calm your shareholders to
Yes.
say,
Yes.
you know, even though we can't tell you what the plan is, we do have a plan. We are working on it. We are confident in our plan. We will give you more details as it comes. And I think that initial lack of follow up messaging is probably what stirred a lot. And there was a lot. It wasn't just on YouTube. We saw it on Facebook. We saw it on
Yeah.
message
Yeah.
boards. I mean, it was getting to a point where it was taking on a life of its own, and people were saying all sorts of crazy stuff. But, unfortunately, that's what happens when you don't sort of calm the masses. Then that does tend to take on a bit of a life of its own. I think it has calmed down, but it was certainly getting to, the lizard people are taking over the tobacco industry levels of hysteria for a little
Yes.
bit there.
Yeah. There were just people like, yeah, exactly.
Oh.
All right. And then the Hoya to Nicaragua kind of going out on their own for distribution rather than going through Drew Estate. How do you think that plays out?
Well, the good news is it came after Mirafell announcement, so that seemed like a drop in the bucket. After that, it was like, oh yeah, by the way, we've got this small announcement that we're ending a multi-decade long partnership here. So that probably helped Hoya, I think, a little bit because I think a lot of people didn't really pay it a lot of attention. Honestly, I didn't see even a fraction of the conversation and sort of online scuttlebutt that the Fuente announcement had.
When that,
I think
go ahead, Matt.
so. I would say a lot of that has to do with like there's no big personalities like with Hoya.
Yeah.
With Hoya and Quesada, or I guess Drew at Drew Estate, but like there's no really like strong personalities that are like a consistent face of those companies, like there is with Mirafil and Fuente.
Yeah.
I don't think there was a surprise that Hoya went out on their own, right? I think we saw some signs over the last few years, separate booths, and they come out with their own preferred retailer program. So I think that was inevitable. I think the company said all the right things at the time of the split, right? So I don't think it was. I think it was a business relationship that both companies ultimately felt was the best thing. But when it happened, the way I was thinking this was going to go was Hoya was going to go what La Aurora did. They were going to establish a U.S. distribution company, and handle it that way, right? They really didn't. They went back to Casada, which they used to work with about 16, 17 years ago, and they kind of resurrected SAG Imports, which was Saga's distribution
Yeah.
arm in the U.S., and they kind of partnered with them on that. That surprised me a lot. That I didn't see any signs of that coming. Um, Other than maybe Hector Becerra leaving, maybe was the one sign that maybe he kind of saw the writing on the wall with this, right? But that surprised me more that they did that, because and I love Casada, but they've struggled with U.S. distribution for a long time. Hoya is kind of going out on their own with distribution. It was an odd thing. I kind of would have maybe thought they'd go a more experienced route with that, as far as the distribution company goes. So I was a little surprised with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. When I saw the revival of SAG, I was like, oh boy, what year is this? Like I haven't heard that name in a very long time. Obviously wish them well, but it certainly doesn't
They're two great
seem.
companies, yeah.
Yeah, they're great companies, and I don't think whether they've carefully controlled the messaging or what the situation is. It certainly doesn't seem like there's any animosity. As you say, Coop, it just kind of seemed like the business partnership ended, and everyone's like, okay, everything's good, don't worry about it, and everyone's carrying on.
Yeah, I think it was time. I think it was actually time for them too. I just don't know if necessarily the route they went is how effective that's going to be. I hope it is. It
Yeah.
was an odd. I didn't expect that. Wasn't what I was expecting to happen. That they were going to partner with someone. And certainly I didn't see Casada. I thought it was going to be more like what La Aurora did, which I think did a very smart move, what they did a few years ago.
Yeah.
All right. FDA. So early in 2025, the appeal by the FDA was shot down. So it was kind of a big win at the beginning of the year, and then kind of a quiet rest of the year for kind of FDA things.
Except we still
Good.
don't know what a premium cigar is.
Yeah.
Like we're doing this
Yeah.
16, 17 years. We still can't figure out what a premium cigar is. And that's going to be the big question going into this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think given the sort of veracity of where, and for anyone who's out there who has read Judge Mita's commentary, I mean that was as close to a legislative slapdown of a company, as of the FDA that I think we've ever seen. Like, I think people were both surprised that it ruled in our favor, but also how aggressive his language was, because I think it exceeded by far where we thought it was going to go. And so when I heard that, I thought, okay, well, based on that, he's going to want to get this off his docket because it's been on his docket forever. I figured this whole, last piece of what is defining as a premium cigar would be addressed well before the end of 2025. And certainly this seems like the opposite. It seems like, we've gone back and forth. I think the last commentary was August. And it doesn't give the appearance that this is going to be resolved anytime soon. Like, I don't even know if they're going to come to a conclusion in 2026 at this rate.
It'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. The PCA had a successful New Orleans trade show. And I think
They
that
did.
was a big question mark kind of in the first half of the year. And it turned out that it worked out swimmingly. What are your
Yeah.
guys' thoughts on the trade show?
I was not looking forward to going to New Orleans just because I've never been. It just seemed like swamp ass city, But it was great. The weather
Yeah.
was great. The this everything was streamlined at the show. The walking and everything. Very walkable city, by the way. Unless you get like a rickshaw or whatever the hell you call that thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was phenomenal. I had a great time. Better. I've only gone to a couple of PCAs and Vegas, but I had the best time in New Orleans.
Yeah.
They were prepared. They were organized. And I go back to the trade show in 2015. The PCA or IPCR back then was not prepared and not organized. Yes, they had the weather was horrible that 2015 trade show, but they were prepared. I mean, PCA made field trips out there with the board members and some of the executive staff. They were very focused on overall experience. I mean, the little details make a big difference sometimes. And Josh, for example, putting in like that, the PCA cafe, I thought was a great idea. Him being at the door, we've talked a lot about that. Making sure media got in, but it was those little things that all added up, right? And I think they focused a lot more on a good experiential component that was really that worked well for them. So I actually think they're having. I actually think they saw some issues this year for the first time of taking that half day away. I just heard that was maybe the only thing that, and I don't think they're going back to put the half day in, but I don't think that's worked out the way they wanted that to work out per se. They did also a great job at getting retailers back to the trade show. They spent a lot of time, and I noticed that they went out to shops, and people say, "Why are they going out to shop?" They were trying to get people to get back in the PCA, get people to go back to the trade show, which was very, very important with them. So they get great marks on that. Now they're gonna have to try to beat it this year, and that's always a challenge.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think you're right, Coop. But like, you've got a lot of different components of the show. You've got the registration. You've got the opening gala Friday. You've got the gala evening. You've got booth setup, booth costs, who's coming to the show, and I think across the board, pretty much on every single measurable they delivered, including the big question mark was, is there going to be places to smoke? Is there going to be venues that are available to host people?
Yep.
And they executed across the entire spectrum, which was very impressive
Yeah.
because, like you said, from those of us who went in 2015, it was like Matt said, I was definitely not looking forward to New Orleans. There was a lot of question marks in my mind, and by really day two, all of those question marks had been eliminated. All the exhibitors seemed happy. Obviously, the return of all the big trade show people that had left previously was a big win for the industry. Um, I don't think you can really find any fault with how it was executed. So, as you say, the challenge, of course, is that's in the past, and so now you have to kind of, you're always okay. That's what you've done in the past. Now, what are you going to do for me now? And so you have to repeat that experience and somehow find a way to improve on that experience. And that's not an easy task, but they certainly built that confidence level that the team could deliver. So,
Yeah.
yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately New Orleans is a little bit costlier than Las Vegas, which is unfortunate for us as media. But looking forward to it for sure.
I will say the cost issue is becoming a big one with us. There's a lot of reasons on our end versus a lot of reasons on the PCA end, but ultimately, I've been saying this: we're not covering 90 booths like we did last year. We're going to have a very different level of coverage, but we're going to try to lean into different areas of the trade show where we think we could be different. So we're not like Coop is not going to have the same type of coverage, but I think we're going to move a lot of trade show coverage before and after this year. So we could lean in on things at the trade show that people may be interested in that we find more good. I will say that the other thing is the other little thing is Josh getting rid of the nachos, which we killed him over the nachos, and he heard it and he made the change last year. So
Yeah.
Well,
we
I mean, I
killed him over
think
the nachos.
you know, the Welcome Gala, we've said it before, really sets the tone. I think going not only the gala, but obviously the sort of pre-events on the Friday really sets the tone for the show. And I think if
Yep.
you can come out with a really good series of presentations and you can follow up with absolute banger of a gala, you you set a positive tone of excitement and interest and fun for the exhibitors and the attendees, and that kind of can smooth over, if there's any fires or weird water issues, like that can smooth that stuff over. Unfortunately, they didn't have to deal with that. So there is some looming questions of like everything went their way and nothing seemed to go against them, but like, there's always that hanging question of like, what happens if it rains on the Friday night? Is pivoting to
Yeah.
indoors going to still have the same impact as being that great outdoor event? Hopefully, we don't have to face that, but I feel confident that the trade show seems ready to tackle that if that comes up. So,
One hiccup they had at the trade show that really didn't become a big deal, and in past years it would have became a big deal, was the registration lines and the
right,
hiccups, which was
right.
this year. That was something we hadn't seen in years. It sounds like Josh is aware of those issues and trying to correct that for 26. But that was a hiccup. But it didn't seem like, I think everything else went so well that people didn't bitch about it. And
Yeah.
in the end, people didn't bitch. But in the past, remember, registration is like usually a 2 to 5 minute thing to do, and it was much more complicated this
It
year.
was a huge line for
It was a huge line, but I
the exhibitors.
think, yeah, exhibitors had it worse than we did.
Yeah.
We had a couple of our media registration. I don't know, something was screwed up with it, but yeah.
All right. Consensus. This is Coop's favorite topic to talk
We
about.
have to talk about it, but okay.
We don't have to. We can skip
No, we
it if
could.
you
No,
want.
we have to, yeah.
Any thoughts on the results, or how the results were kind of put together, I guess would be another interesting question. So, Coop wants to go first.
I
Yeah.
guess I'll start. So I think that Charlie puts a lot of hard work into this. He does, right? But do I look at this list having the same type of value that it's had in the previous years? It doesn't seem like it's there. And this is the analogy I'm going to use. You're making something in the kitchen, a soup or a salad or a casserole. The more ingredients you throw in, there's ultimately a point where you have diminishing returns. And these could be great ingredients. These are not bad ingredients, but ultimately you do something like that. And as you grow, as you want to grow something, if you're not putting structure around it, you get a mess. I'm just saying that's a fact of growing any type of thing. And right now, I see the consensus is in that energy. It's too wide. It's not structured, and this is not an indictment of the list going in there. It's just Charlie's trying to make a soup with too many ingredients right now.
Mhm.
And I think if he, unless he kind of addresses this, the consensus, the data just really doesn't make sense that's coming out of there right now. Like I said, it's good ingredients, but ultimately, when you go wide, it's a problem.
Well, and I think I heard him mention that he was talking about allowing like IG influencers on there, like
Really?
expanding the list. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I think that's a bad
and
idea. Again, it's just you're growing this too much now.
yeah, and like somebody mentioned in the comments, like I'm sure you guys have seen it too on Instagram. It is very easy to buy some followers on
Yeah.
Instagram and like to look like you have influence.
Yeah.
So there's, I mean, if it seems a little messy now, just imagine when you get like a ton of people that added to the list that are supposedly have a lot of influence that are just very
Right.
they bought their followership. So
Well,
that's concerning.
well, it's happened on other mediums too, to be fair, right?
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying you guys, but yeah, there are other YouTubers I've seen out there that have bought YouTube subscribe.
Yeah,
I've seen it,
the
right?
boost their numbers. Yeah.
The booster
Yeah.
numbers, yeah. So they're out there. There's people who inflate their website numbers, so it's out there. But I think if he doesn't put structure around this, it's not. It's just not. It's not going to have the same meaning anymore. And here's another thing I'll say. What was the number one cigar in the consensus this year?
My father blue.
Did my
The
father
blue.
even acknowledge that this year?
I haven't seen anything.
Now
I haven't seen
they've
it.
acknowledged Half Wheel giving them number one in the past. I remember that Humidor release. They
Right.
acknowledged it. They didn't
Yeah.
even acknowledge this year, which is kind of a flag. And I think they have a good relationship with my father. That's kind of a flag for me saying you're starting to miss the mark here. If my father's not even just giving you a mention on this right now, that's why I would look at maybe you have to look at some options here because I just don't think it's going to work adding in more ingredients to the soup here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that can't that could have something to be said with my father's, their media. Like that the
Yeah.
way that they handle
Yeah.
their Instagram, the way that they handle their stuff like that. Maybe behind the scenes they've like called Charlie or like, did something that we don't know about. But yeah, as far as like what we see, what's visible to us, crickets.
Yeah.
I've given my father a number one, and we've given them factory and company, and we've gotten some They tend to only recognize number one, is what I've noticed, right? And there's some companies
Yeah.
that operate like that. There wasn't even like, I'm sure they were tagged, I'm sure they were aware. They didn't even mention this on social media that they got number one with the consensus, and it was a good story if you think about what they did this year. That I thought it would be something, and it was a great way to kind of embrace the whole community. They chose not to do that. I'm not saying I understand that they maybe operate a little differently, but the fact that it wasn't like a bigger deal is telling me obviously something's not connecting with companies on this anymore.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I will say about the including Instagrammers is I think because Aaron did this experiment of seeing, our list, would it have moved the dial if because we had a fair number of cigars that were also adjacent to the list, would that have actually affected any of the positioning? I think at the end of the day, it was one or two cigars, and it was very, very minor. So I don't know that the inclusion of, call it a handful of 4 or 5 Instagrammers would even move the dial per se, unless there was overlap in certain popular brands. I don't even know if it would affect the list because I think there was like 60 some odd or 65 different producers on the list this year. So I think the the list is wide enough now that it's a lot harder for one individual list to really move that dial versus like, 5 or 6 years ago where it was a lot easier to do. For me, because I'm a business analyst by trade, for me, if it was my list, I would want to do it differently. Sort of what Coop was mentioning, but I would actually love to see a retailer list, believe it or not. Like I think that's the one thing that is kind of missing that would be kind of fun on the side is to say, here's whoever, call it two guys, and whoever's kind of a retailer or retail adjacent, and do a retailer list and say, okay, we've done the media list. What does it look like from the retailer list? What are the retailers saying? Because there's enough retailers out there doing lists now that I think there's probably like 15 or 16 lists, which is more than enough to compile it. And honestly, the data is probably a little bit cleaner for
Well,
Charlie than having to dig through YouTubers and
we
listen to hours of commentary. I don't know, Coop.
Aaron and I were thinking about it a few years ago, and I started going down the road of doing that. But I saw some of the same problems with the consensus. It was too
Mm,
inconsistent, the data, and I'm like, I can't normalize this. Was the
yeah,
problem?
Yeah, because
So
with the retailers, you can have regional
yeah,
brands that are,
right, right.
show better. And, with the
and then
retailers, they're only
they're
listing
throwing
what
their own cigars on there,
what
which
they what they
Well, but
can sell, right?
that's of course
So
they're gonna,
yeah.
yeah.
you're gonna have,
I think,
go ahead.
yeah, and I think the only other thing that I wish that and you can't change the world, but I wish that people who are included on the list would stick to the ranking style of lists. You like I know that you say, well, these are 10 favorite cigars. We're not going to rank them. But it's like, well, the whole consensus is based on the concept of ranking. So if you just have 10 cigars or 15 cigars or 20 cigars and they're all evenly weighted, that doesn't really tell the story that the consensus is trying to tell, which is, okay, that's great. But like, what's your number one? What's
Yeah.
your number 25? Um, and there was certainly like, I don't know, 8 or 9 lists that were like that. So, in the end, I think they just get the same weighting for each cigar. And that's kind of a bit of a disservice to some of the cigars that did quite well because, they probably would have moved up in ranking as a result. But it's not my list, and
It's Charlie's in the end. That's
it's
kind of the
Charlie's in
most.
the
Yeah,
end.
It's his thing,
Yeah.
and he's the curator, and he has a right to do what he wants to do with it. Certainly. So,
yeah.
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 um, so, and Aaron and I, and John, we've talked about this. There's ways look. There are ways if you want to get on the consensus as a company, you can do things, and Sokka's been the best example of that
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
far. So, bravo to him on that. But ultimately, what I found the most interesting thing again, a company that has not been friendly to most medium, not that they're friendly, they haven't. They tend to be more print focused. Was My Father wins the consensus over the
The
new
leader red.
media,
Yeah.
which is YouTube, um, blogs, etc. That was the most interesting thing that came out of the consensus on that beating it. Like so, they despite what they found a way to connect with media with that cigar.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess what's kind of funny about that is for all this talk about, samples or whatever moving
Yeah,
the dial, ironically, they didn't send out samples to my knowledge. So all of the My Father blues were sort of
right.
legitimately purchased
And they don't sponsor a lot of
and they don't
these.
sponsor a lot of these.
Right. So
So
that's what I'm saying. It wasn't a
yeah,
bad thing that happened either. It
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
throws that argument in there. But unfortunately, I just think it's if he put a little more like, and I came up with some scenarios that would work where I think it would still include some lists. But then Charlie's got a problem if he excludes someone. And Matt went through this year. There was a lot of feedback on Matt this
A
year.
lot of feedback on that being excluded. Yeah.
So again, it's Charlie's rules, ain't my rules. But um, that's part of the It's controversial when you exclude someone's my point. And Charlie had to deal with a lot of feedback on that, and that's part of what he does. He has to take that feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Last topic for 2025, and that is just the car performance. So kind of the overall performance of the cigars in 2025 versus 2024. Do you think it's up, down, on par? I'll say it was a slightly down for me from last year.
So I haven't seen our data yet, so I'm going to hang my ass out a little bit on this one. But I feel like, and this is a controversial statement, I feel like the average cigar in 2025 was better than the average cigar in 2024, with the caveat of the upper boundary and the lower boundary got squished. So I feel like through 2025 we saw less cigars that were sort of in the subpar category, and the reverse of that is we saw quite a few cigars fewer in the very good category than what we would have seen in the past. So the sort of scatter plot of, there's a couple cigars that are way outside of the spectrum of the average scoring, and a number of cigars that were way under the average spectrum. I feel like that for us, that whole thing just got squished. So, where I don't remember what our average score was for last year, but I feel like it might be up slightly on average, and I'm hanging my ass out there because I have no idea. I have not seen the data, so I'm as fascinated as anyone to see when that gets published, whether I'm right on that. But that was kind of my takeaway. Is at the end of the year, I was like, there didn't seem to be that many cigars that were massive standouts. It just seemed like everything performed in that sort of average to slightly above average space, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was a 900th of a point difference higher, which in my book was probably statistically even.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, but I did notice the 25 releases, and I didn't publish this data, and maybe I should. The 25 releases seem to have lower scores than the 24 releases. And some of those 24 releases that hung over did some good scores. So,
Hmm.
I thought I thought my top three was much stronger than in the past, but it was different when I started getting down the list, I noticed.
Okay. What about you, Matt?
I had so many bomb cigars this last year.
Yeah.
I fucking like. I was also lucky enough. I was also lucky enough to have been sent a lot of like aged Cubans too,
Oh,
which
okay.
didn't hurt.
Oh.
But yeah, like Lampert, that Limitada 25, love that cigar. There's Mirafell, not cheap, but that Minor Pyramid was something special. I've had a lot of really, really good cigars this year compared to 2024.
Okay. Nice. Anything about 2025 that we haven't covered that we should talk about? Or we could move on to 2026.
The one thing I'll comment on, and I think we commented on a little bit last year as well, is that for me as a reviewer, the one positive thing that has come out of many positive things, moving the show up to April/March, is that it used to be such a scramble in Q3, Q4, with the releases being sort of back end loaded in the year, and so we were always struggled with. Yeah, our cutoff is November 1st, but there's like 17 new releases between, September 29th and October 31st. And so we have to review so many more cigars that are eligible for the year and get them in and get them written and get them assessed. And that's really dropped off. I mean, I feel like our cadence was very steady through Q3 and Q4, which takes a lot of pressure off of me, especially going to the holidays. But I don't mind that at all. I mean, I'm happy with the trade show being at the beginning of the year. I'm happy with the releases being a little bit more spread out throughout the year. I don't know from an industry perspective whether retailers are happy about that, but as someone who has to review a lot of cigars, I'm very happy about that.
Yeah.
There were two stories I want to touch on that I think were really big stories in the industry. The first one was the fire at AJ Fernandez.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, you cannot dispute what an impact that was, because AJ's factory is different than all the other factories in that his primary production is for third party, more so than his. And there's some big brands that were impacted by this year. General and STG and Altadis are two examples of that. To a lesser extent, there were the Artisanos and the Nick Melillos, right? But that was and you got to give AJ credit. You have to give him a lot of credit. Aaron, you may not love the cigars, but you know what? They were able, for the most part, to mitigate that as much as possible. And I think all the releases that were promised were delivered by the end of the year.
Yeah.
So I think that was a tremendous job that they did in that factory this year. You know, we were talking to Hector last week. Even some of the things like they lost molds and stuff like that. That was a tough thing. And the other one that was a big story, um, was the whole Alejandro Torrent leaving Grupo Torrent, which is he was the face of the Torrents. So
Yeah.
you know they're the Mexican. They're pretty much the Mexican tobacco operation. And that was a bizarre departure and everything
Yes.
where you know they announced he was leaving and then they said he wasn't he was just changing roles, but it turned out he did separate.
Yeah.
So that you know, and that's a big story in a lot of ways. Got a lot, you know, like I said, I got a lot of like feedback on that story this year, which is telling me, you know, and I'm curious. I mean, maybe we don't see the impacts of that per se, but he still was a name in this industry, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I'll be curious to see how that
Yeah.
plays
Oh,
out or if there's any really blowback on it.
one other thing, and this is not a cigar story, but the whole shutting down of Sutliff Tobacco and
Mhm.
Yeah.
getting rid of all those pipe blends. I know this is like a cigar, but that was still big.
Yeah.
That was still a big story, and well, all these pipe blends going away, um, is a story. I mean, I can't tell you how many messages I got on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pipe smokers were pretty unhappy about that for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Looking ahead to 2026, we already talked a little bit about the FDA stuff and what if there's a definition of a premium cigar and all that stuff's going to happen. But and we also kind of touched a little bit on the PCA stuff, but a little bit more on PCA. What's your outlook for the trade show this year? Do you think it matches what they did last year? Do you think it exceeds it? Do you think there's a little bit of a recession on it, or I mean, my point of view is their kind of opening day with the different sessions seems like it's a bit of a drop
Yes.
from what was happening last year. So I have a fear that it's going to be a bit, it's not going to match up with what happened last year, and
Yes.
I think that will just get amplified because people have a short memory of how great the year previous was. That
Yeah.
it's if it doesn't match it, it's going to be like, they blew it, all this kind of stuff. When it probably can't match that level because it was like the bar was so low before that it was a big step up. So curious your thoughts.
So I think they'll be okay with the party. I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
Dude,
It,
so just talking about that for a quick sec, do we have any details around the gala this
I think
year?
it's the same place as last year, right?
yeah, I'm not sure
Okay.
who the players are. They haven't announced who the players are yet.
That's kind
But
of a big
but I believe
factor.
that I believe that there's like a party after that party, right?
That's the awards they're doing.
Oh, is that the awards thing? Okay.
Is it a retailer awards or is that a
Those Best of Leaf awards.
okay.
Um, I think if Padron is the opening event, which they originally had that on the schedule on the website, they've pulled it down since then.
Mm,
I think that if they'll be okay with Padron, but I am a little concerned. Um, some of the stuff I heard is they were going to lean in with some of the FIU stuff.
yeah.
I know they're going to promote the Nick Hammond thing, and not that these are bad things, but where they really started to turn around opening day was the Fuente Friday thing they did a few years ago.
Yeah.
Having Nick Melillo come in, having the Padron thing on Jose Orlando Padron. Obviously the hand roll. So, but Aaron and I have been preaching for a long time. Make this day one interactive.
Yeah.
Make it experiential. And I feel they're going back. If they're going back to seminars, it's not going to be as exciting. They had some stuff out there, and like I said, they pulled some stuff down. So I don't know if there's changes going on.
Yeah.
The only thing I
Yeah.
know that's still on there is the Nick Hammond thing,
Right. Which I
and
have no excitement over.
Cigar Aficionados getting their hour.
Yeah, no
So
excitement for that either.
it's I love what they're doing with the PCA Cafe this year. There's going to be a lot of stuff I'm going to talk about on Coop. I think there's some very interesting observations I had out there last year. I thought it kind of was a great gathering place to talk to people.
Yeah, that was a cool spot to be able to have that
Yeah,
out there.
I want to leverage it more. I told the team we're going to leverage that a lot more this year.
Yeah.
I think that kind of fell under the radar a bit, and the fact that they had beignets there and everything.
Yeah.
Uh, and like I said, I love what Nick Hammond's doing with this. I've read his book.
Hmm.
He's a great writer, and I think it's good. But I think they need something interactive, like they did with Fuente Friday a few years ago. And when they did the La Aurora thing is another one. Those are the things that work, and I don't know why you would get away from that.
Yeah. And do you think they'll have a bump in attendance, maybe just based on word of mouth from how last year's show went, that there more people would want to attend?
I think they will.
Okay.
I think the inside baseball stuff that we talk about, most people don't even know about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think they will get a bump in that for sure. Hopefully the weather cooperates with them this year. They are doing, I think it's Palm Sunday week again. They're doing, I think the
Yep.
parade show's on Palm Sunday again this year.
Yep.
I believe it's during the Masters this year, which is setting panic in the retailers in North Carolina. Masters is one of the biggest retail day weekends in Charlotte because that is the number one sporting event
Yeah.
I mean,
of the
it
year.
seems like there's no unfortunately there's no perfect weekend, right? Like there's always something, especially
Yeah,
through Q2. There's
yeah.
always a weekend you're going to run into.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with what you said on the opening sessions on the Friday. I'm less. I'm of the last 3 years. This will be the one I'm least excited for. So that's why I was asking about the gala because I feel like the gala sort of puts the cap on the that day, and I think that you still have an opportunity to sort of make that Friday special by having a big gala event. It just has to be the right partners and the right festival, and obviously the weather has to cooperate. And if all those things come through, then I think you go into the show with the same excitement. But if there's not that, then you know, and then it's nacho time.
Yeah.
Well, if they kick that thing off of Padron, which is, and I don't know, that was what was on the website a few weeks ago,
Right.
and then they pulled it down. And maybe that's not finalized yet. Was is part of that, so we want to be fair. But that will definitely set a great tone at this trade show.
Yeah.
Where even if the rest of the stuff, um, if they do a hand roll, that's really going to captivate people.
How about part two of the hand rolled from last year? That'd be good.
I still haven't seen it, but people said I was good in it, so
Yeah.
I still haven't seen it yet. Jay sent me video of like from the wall of his store of it, and it was hard to make out,
Yeah.
but I'm in it.
Yeah, I agree. I think in terms of retailer attendance, I think it's going to be up. I think it's going to be like 8 to 10% kind of numbers, like reasonable, normal, good. I think retailer attendance is going to be up. I think media attendance might be down. Just by the nature of we've seen some media brands drop. I don't know how much the smaller media brands are uh, willing to spend the money to go to New Orleans to cover the show. So I don't know what that looks like, but my gut says I feel like that the media numbers might be down going into this trade show.
I do too, and especially if PCA is going to be walking around with video cameras this year.
Mm.
Um, I'm looking at that, and if they do that, that's why I'm leaning towards moving away from video coverage in a lot of ways this year. Just there's not that's already been saturated to begin with.
Yeah.
And I just think there's different things that we need to start covering this. There's so much we can cover before and after the show right now that we don't need to focus on that during the show, is what I'm finding.
Right. Um, any mergers or acquisitions that we think might happen 2026?
Kind of seems like we're overdue, doesn't it? We're expecting some big ones, I think, in 2025, and didn't seem to materialize. So I don't know if that's still in the works or
What happened in
waiting for that shoe to drop.
2025? Which was the? I'm just drawing a blank. There wasn't a big one in 2025 that I'm thinking
There
of.
was not.
There was
No.
not. The Sutliff thing was the year before,
Right.
which was. So I don't know if I'll see anything major. I mean, there's always the same stories we've heard for 10 years. Davidoff, Rocky are the ones every year you hear about.
Yeah.
So until it happens, uh, I don't know. I mean,
I've been hearing about Illusione for the past couple of years too.
that's one I
And
haven't heard.
Well, I mean, from my perspective, and within my bubble, um, uh, the rebranding is just like kind of situating, once again from my perspective, is situating themselves in order to sell, to make themselves more easily
Great point.
recognizable.
Great point.
Um, and also I the quality has not been there. And like, is that a representation of just the current market? Is that a representation of the current crop? I don't know. Is it a representation of Dion just not having his heart in it,
Mhm.
and just getting ready to sell or wanted to sell and just hasn't gotten the right number yet? But I mean, in my opinion, it's just a matter of time uh, to when Illusione sells.
That's a great point you made, Matt, because we were told some info that when Alec Bradley sold, the precursor to that was when they recalibrated their box counts and re-standardized that. And that's a really good observation. It's something that I didn't know till after that happened.
Yeah.
But what you say makes a lot of sense there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good. One to watch out for.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't think you'll see anything with Davidoff for Rocky. I'd be surprised if Davidoff for Rocky sell this year.
Hmm.
Be very surprised on that. Uh, did you guys? I mean, Aaron and I talked about this. There was kind of the shuffling of the shells at STG with the restructuring of the brands this year.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm curious how that plays out. And it's going to be, from what I know, General is going to be at the trade show this year, not Ford's. So,
Yeah, well, so that kind of leads into the next conversation, which is, I think, the quantity of releases. And I think that from my perspective, just by the nature of lost production from what's going on with Altadis, I think, with the reshuffling of General, with Altadis having to move production, uh, it's not a zero-sum game. There's only so many releases you can have in a year. So I actually think this might be a bit of a down year in terms of, you know, the sort of frenzy of 450 releases might be down substantially this year versus last year.
I think the key thing, too, is if I'm Drew Estate and I'm Davidoff, this is the year to really lean in.
Right.
And, like, okay, go full guns blazing in the trade show this year.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely because if the release counts down, there's a lot more eyes looking for something big
Yeah.
to be out there.
We're
So
still waiting for a big Oliva release. We haven't had a big Oliva release in a long time.
yeah.
Millennial
So,
doesn't count.
Millennial was that last one.
I'm just kidding.
And by the way, I told you Serie G would not make the Cigar
Yeah,
Station.
yeah, yeah. Well,
I,
you
I,
you and I, you and
you
were
and
in
I,
lockstep. Yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
was like,
we were stone cold lead pipe on.
yeah, lead
No,
pipe
it's
lock is like, look, it's a great cigar and it sells well. It's not showing up on the
yeah.
list. It's not bumping the Millennial off the list. It's never going to happen. Sorry, unless the Millennial line gets killed, the Series G is not gonna show
That
up.
was a big debate for folks who don't know on our CA pregame show when we were doing there was an internal battle with everyone on that. There was some people who Serie G is gonna make it.
Yeah, they said there's Stone Cold Lock Series G on the list.
Yeah,
And
and
I'm
I'm
like,
like,
it's Stone
nope.
Cold lead pipe lock. It's not going to make it.
Right. So Rocky will have some release. See what you never know what Fuente is going to do. I
Yep.
think Fuente, if they do anything, it will be a lot more limited type releases. So, um, we'll see. We'll see with that. Um, Espinoza always goes in with a trade show pretty strong. Saka's going to go
Yep.
in strong. Um, What did you guys think of Dunbarton's year this year?
I think they had a great year. I mean,
Yeah, I think they had a great year.
even
I think
pulling
they did.
out Jubilee till this
I think
year.
that was a smart move. I think it was a smart move by
Yeah.
him. I don't hold that against him. I think he had a solid year this year. So he definitely. I don't. The samplers, I don't know how well they did, but that's a question for Steve, not me.
Yeah.
So I heard he's doing like a Corona release is something
Ooh,
for sure.
now
I
you
heard
have
he's
my
doing,
attention. There we
yeah,
go.
he's got a Corona release similar to what he did with the. I heard
The
him. He was on
Lanceros.
another. Yeah, I heard him talk. It may have been on your show, Matt. He said that.
Well,
Man,
maybe we can talk Aaron Loomis into buying three sampler kits to.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll see.
I love the Fratanga. I know some people that didn't like it. Like, I love the regular RML. I love both. The
Yeah.
Frutonga I thought was a great
Yeah,
release.
100%.
While I wasn't a fan of it, I think it generated a lot more interest in RML for
Yeah.
sure. Like I think
Yeah.
RML didn't like it wasn't a consensus cigar. Obviously, Tonga connected with a lot of people this year.
Yeah.
And you can't like Steve doesn't get hurt if you don't love a cigar of his, but he connected with people, and that's the most important thing. He finds a way to connect with people.
Well, I
Yeah.
think even Steve said he was surprised the even the bronze back did well. It was kind of the way he framed it. He said he kind of felt like that was a bit of a
I
throwaway.
made I made that prediction. I made the
Yeah,
prediction Bronzeback was going to win the consensus back at the show. I said that.
yeah,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I
So as you say, Coop, I think with release counts being down, there's probably an opportunity for some of the medium to larger brands
yeah
to flex a little bit and come out with
yeah.
some big showstoppers, and there's an opportunity for them to take a lot of attention away this year.
A lot of people, we gave Tatuaje, they won the Company of the Year award today, and I had a lot of interesting questions on that one. But my answer to is Pete. I think he came out with the Corojo line, and he was able to keep, for the most part, with the exception of the one release, that 50th birthday
Yeah.
cigar, he kept prices low. He kept his
Yeah.
prices under $15 for most everything. So, I think he did a good job with that. And I thought that Serie P Honduras was actually a really good value cigar. So I expect Pete to kind of have a bunch of releases that he'll bring to the trade show and he'll roll out throughout the year.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Do we think there's going to be another kind of a push of ultra premiums this year? A lot of higher price, or we think that's going to settle down based on what the market as a whole is looking like?
No, there's going to be some.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they're not going away. I think you're going to see some more Rob Report cigars. I already know of a couple. So I don't know if the companies want them out there, but yeah, you're going to see some more.
Yeah, I think it'll be kind of the same as what we saw this year. That is,
It ain't going
similar
to go away.
quantity.
It won't
No,
go
it's not going
away.
to go away, but I don't think it's going to go up, and I don't think it's going to go down. I think you're going to see roughly the same number of sort of jaw droppers, and same number of $75, and same number of 60 $50 releases. I think it'll be roughly the same. I don't see it going up, and I don't really see it going down.
Yeah. It's like Gordos. Like
Right.
660s didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah,
market for it. They
yeah.
see it. There's a pattern.
Yeah.
They're gonna continue to do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Coop. You say
Yeah,
something?
no, I was gonna agree with Matt on that. For sure. I think, like I said, that part's not going away. I think maybe you'll see another uh push with Lanceros again. This seemed like a
Mhm.
lighter year with Lanceros. Everyone's always gonna do their Lanceros because they want us. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Was that they got we just got in the blackened the S84 and the M81 Lanceros.
Yeah.
I haven't smoked those yet. Yeah.
Not looking forward to it.
Me neither. Sorry, on.
Who knows? Maybe less tobacco makes it better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. Good point.
We'll see.
Less is more.
Um, so I believe it was Tennessee that just had kind of proposed a online sales ban.
Mhm.
Do you guys see that as something that's a bigger thing that pops up in 2026 with states trying to ban online sales?
Yeah, I don't think it will maybe necessarily go rambunctious, but it's possible. And then I'm sure it will come down to someone will settle it and they'll tax it or something like that.
Mhm.
So that's going to be where
Yeah.
the advocacy of the trade associations really need to kind of be on top of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm more waiting for the shoe to drop on more statewide flavor bans because back several years ago I said California is probably going to be the first, and once California got that solidified, that's when we'd see the sort of wheels come off where you're going to see. Well, we kind of saw a little bit of that in Texas with some of their advertising restrictions, and so I think that we'll see more of that through 2026 for sure.
Yeah. I don't know I haven't seen another UTL pop up yet.
No, but
So,
it's
but
coming.
I think it's coming. Yeah, I think you'll see
Yeah.
2 or 3 states do it.
yeah. Any other things in 2026 that we should be looking for in the cigar space?
I mentioned the 2 big anniversaries, so I think they're
Mm.
going to be focus at PCA a lot around that. The
All right.
Padron and the Avo, I think, will be big. Um, I do know this will. I don't. I think Perdomo. I know Perdomo doesn't have a major release coming out this year. I think they're planning for 27, their next big release.
Well,
I mean, I know they're going through some factory expansion stuff as well
Mhm.
down there. So, they're probably getting ready for a lot of that.
They can ride the legacy for a while longer.
They,
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah.
they can. I
Yeah.
mean, and that I think changed Perdomo in a lot of ways because it made people who aren't normally Perdomo cigar smokers very interested in that because they did something very
Absolutely.
different than they did.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think you'll see that. Um,
Do we see a bunch more Dominican factories or Honduran factories popping up for those that play in Nicaragua?
I'll guess maybe if the Espinosa thing goes through, which it's sounding like, that's one. And I think I could see a couple more Honduran factories. I don't think it'll be a huge number. I don't think
Yeah.
we'll see it something as big as what my father did, though.
Right.
Yeah.
That I don't see happening. That's a big one. And we're going to see, by the way, that's one to really keep an eye on. I mean, we had Tim on the show a few weeks ago. He said that their next release is coming out of Honduras. So you're going to
Oh,
see,
there you go.
I think the My Father factory will be one where you'll see a lot of releases. The Fuente factory is not opening in 26, from what I understand. I think it's 27.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
That's kind of what I believe. If they do get it, it will be towards the end of the year.
Mhm.
Yeah, even though I wasn't the biggest fan of the blue, I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes out of that factory next.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely,
Yep.
absolutely. They can, but again, they connected with people on that cigar, so you
Clearly.
can't say they were unsuccessful. It's just because it wasn't my flavor profile doesn't mean they were unsuccessful.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well,
Yeah.
as we said repeatedly, to get a number one consensus without sort of cooking the consensus, that speaks for itself.
The cigar had to do something, is what I'm saying.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I think I'm interested in the Dubai thing a lot with PCA. I think they had positive feedback from what I'm seeing with it. So the question is, how many more people go to Dubai? I'm supposed to go to Dubai again in May.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna but I'm gonna do a little more traveling in the UAE this time. So I'm gonna kind of do some recon, basically talking to people there and see.
Right.
I may make a big Cuban purchase there this year, by the way, but I shouldn't say that. But that'll check my book.
Yeah.
The one thing we didn't talk about, because it's not really this industry specific, but I will say I am anticipating some big news for Cuba in 2026.
Politically,
Politically, yes, and therefore cigar industry wise. Yep.
Huh.
Yeah, I
wouldn't be-
think
the situation
Yeah.
there is worth watching.
yeah, there's big news that came out today that Pemex has agreed to stop all oil shipments to Cuba. And so with Pemex not delivering any oil and the Venezuela oil deliveries to Cuba essentially be shut off, that ramps up pressure on Cuba substantially. And that is not something I think that will not go uncatastrophically before the end of this year. In fact, I'd say by July, we're probably going to see something come from that. So that's something to keep
Yeah.
on the radar for 2026.
Oh, I have a big one.
Go for it.
America 250.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Like this is going to be a big year for America 250.
Mhm.
So you're going to see a lot of these America 250 cigars come out. You just saw United made their announcement. I wouldn't be surprised if Carrillo does the Pledge of Allegiance around the 250.
Sure.
Surely
Uh,
JC Newman must be planning something.
Newman,
Yeah,
I think Newman is going to have another release around the 250. I think that just
Yeah,
banding thing. I think they'll do something around the American is what my guess
yeah.
would be.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I think you're gonna see all these America 250 cigars come out. Where it's gonna be probably we're gonna be sick of them like we're sick of the Chinese New Year cigars.
Yes.
That's where I think it. So we haven't put the over under.
I don't know about that, Coop.
We're gonna do it over. We're gonna have an over under soon on this.
All
That'd
right,
have to
that's
be a
good.
lot of
Yeah.
250s to compete with the.
Well, listen, if I said the over
Euros.
under was 8, would you go over or under?
I'd go over.
I'd go over.
I'll go over. Yeah.
Over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go. I'll go put my over at 12.
All right.
Yep. If
Yeah.
I was CAO, I'd be looking at the America
Yeah.
with that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So
What
this is good. This is good. You could brainstorm all the ideas that you have for all the different brands and the ones that don't deliver. You grade each of these brands based on their delivery for that or not. So that'd be a good way to go
Yeah,
about it.
but everyone's going to be looking at in their America playbook and what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's what's going to be. Like I said, Newman would be the obvious one
Yep.
to do it because they're going to play that whole American factor. Does LT? I don't know if LT Time necessarily will do it, but maybe STG does something out of there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so it's gonna be it's gonna be interesting on that. I think you're gonna see a bunch of them. That's gonna be a big theme at the trade show this year.
Yep.
Mhm.
Accessories too. Watch the accessory space.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Watch the accessory space. And then the other big question is, does Fuente finally come out with the Opus X30s this year?
Mm,
So
Hmm.
that's a question we don't know. I mean, it didn't come out last year, and it was the 30th. So,
right.
Yeah.
but I think that would be some. I can see Carlito putting an Easter egg in the boots on the 30th this year. And we
Yeah.
won't know anything about it. We'll see an Easter egg.
Yeah.
And he'll probably tell people to call me on it, like they did.
Right.
We'll,
Like he did.
we'll squeeze Jose. We'll try and get some information. on
Oh,
Jose.
that guy won't
Yeah.
give me any information. Trust me. Coop. I can't. Lose my
I can't
job.
talk about that. Carlito
Carlito.
said it's a secret, but I can't speak. I'll lose my job.
I, I mean, the Black Pinks were the ones he did to me, and you're telling people to call me on the Black Pinks. I'll never forget that.
All right, I think that's a wrap for us then.
Yeah, I think
So
so.
thank you guys. Really appreciate all your insights, and I know we went fairly long tonight, so really thank you guys for taking your personal time
Of
and
course.
hanging out and chatting with us about cigars. So I want to thank everybody that's watching and everybody that's tuning in later. Thanks for either downloading this and podcast or watching it on YouTube, Facebook, whatever it is. So thank you all. Looking forward to a good 2026, and we'll be back around this time next year to recap everything that's happening this year. So thank you all again. And
Thank you, guys. Yeah.
yeah, we will catch you all on the next one.
Take care.